All right, how's everybody doing? All right, we are on time. We are, in fact, early, practically, almost. Very close to being early. I think 7 minutes off. Pretty good. How's everybody doing? So close to being early. It's almost there. Kid would win if Shanks fought fairly. Jolly D. Joestar's asking, was he on time? Yes, practically. Practically, almost. Almost. Jerry D. Lee says, not a debate. Luffy loses because he can only use Gear 5th for 5 minutes before he needs lunch. That's true. But Luffy's no pushover without Gear 5th either. All right. I'm going to say right now, I personally got the Straw Hats. I personally think the Straw Hats take it. But I know that there's a lot of arguments saying that, hey, the Straw, like Luffy's pretty fucking broken, you know. Behenort, thank you for being a Pirate King tier member for 11 months. I'm so Final Fantasy 14 brain rotted that my reaction to the last chapter was Emith Selch mentioned. I don't even know what that means. I'm so not Final Fantasy. I'm so normie brain rotted, I guess. I have no idea what the hell that I have no idea what that reference is. Emit Selch? I don't know who that is. Anyway, today I decided to go back to college this fall, something to do with writing probably, so I'm very happy. Hey, Behenort, congratulations. That's awesome. Something to do with writing? You could be an English major. I had 2 roommates freshman year. Don't even get me started. I need so much personal space, and freshman year I had to live in a triple. So I don't know, sometimes the dice. Most other people lived in doubles, obviously, like you and a roommate. I had to live in a triple. Anyway, one of my 2 freshman year roommates was an English major. He did technically become a lawyer. We were all planning to become lawyers and go into law school. So I guess maybe just being an English major isn't that great. But, you know, he is a successful career now. So, you know, just go into it for writing and you'll find something that you like. You know, you could, what do you call? You could become a writer. There's so many writing jobs that are available and real and everything like that. You could just be a writer if that's what you truly love. J.S. Mendin says Zoro can't keep up King of Hell for long either, little bro. I mean, I don't know who you call him little bro. I don't remember who made this original comment, but we don't really know the limits of Zoro's King of Hell because he wasn't in the best condition when he used it for the first time. So we kind of we got some things to stack here. It's tricky. Lars Caesar says Sanji would feed Luffy if he needed food, even though he's the enemy. Oof. That's a good point. No, he wouldn't feed him. He wouldn't feed him just to feed him, right? Sanji's thing is like, I'm going to feed anyone that's like starving. Like, you need food to live. It's not as though Sanji's going into every fight being like, hey, I need to feed this opponent to make sure they're in tip-top condition, you know? He's going to feed the enemy if they need to live, because that's just his thing. It's, you know, it's like being a doctor or whatever. I don't know. Do doctors all have to... Does Chopper have to heal people from dying? I don't know. But Sanji, that's his thing. Like, if Luffy just runs out of food and is hungry, that's not like, and he can't fight at peak condition anymore, Sanji's not just going to feed him, you know? Like there are times canonically in the story where Luffy's saying, I'm hungry, and Sanji's like, well, you got to fucking wait till dinner time, I'm pretty sure. So that's something to consider as well. Luke says, let's be honest, it's Luffy versus Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei. No, that's ridiculous. You're underestimating the Straw Hat Pirates at your own peril. That's what other characters... Come on. Like, how many times throughout the story have the rest of the Straw Hat crew proven just how important and relevant and useful they are? Very frequently. Like, it's easy to count them out. But it's the fucking Straw Hat Pirates. Like all of them are like, if it's Luffy versus any of them 1v1, then of course the like Luffy will fuck him up, right? But the Straw Hats as a whole are still really, really, really fucking strong. Like, where's it at? Can't imagine losing. Ha ha ha. Like, look at this. This is a Big Mom, right? This is Big Mom, and the Straw Hats basically fucking like roll her off the island. You know, like the Straw Hats are not pushovers. The rest of them, they're not pushovers. I mean, like, this is not even the first time they've done this shit to Big Mom. I feel like if we go back, is it literally like 100 chapters ago? Oh my god, 100 chapters ago, they were still doing the same shit to her, weren't they? This is the 100 chapter anniversary of them fucking her up the first time. To be fair, she was hungry as shit here and starving and weak or whatever, but like, you know what I mean? Like, the Straw Hats are impressive. This is a cool color spread. I don't remember this one. It's a cool one. But yeah, like, I mean, this is impressive shit, you know? Brook speed blitzes pretty soon. Nami's going to be not too useful here because Nami will not be helpful in this fight. Nami is... It's just like lightning is her biggest tool, and that's just unfortunately ineffective against Luffy. Kiara, thanks for the 20. Hello, Eustace Morjid. Would you prefer One Piece to end with the crew splitting up or sticking together and going on a new journey? Personally, I don't like it when our main cast separates at the end. I am on the train that I think that One Piece could end with kind of like... I just feel like the journey is about getting Luffy to Pirate King. I could definitely see the story concluding with the crew basically disbanding at the end of it to go about their own separate ways, because ultimately I think a lot of them are not necessarily... I think a lot of the Straw Hats are not necessarily like lifelong adventurers, you know what I mean? I think a lot of them, they're on this journey specifically to... They like adventure, but they're on this journey specifically to make Luffy Pirate King, largely because of the bonds that they have with each other, but also... in a sense, Luffy saved them, so now they indebt themselves to him and put their lives on the line to get him to his dream. I think once the story concludes, I just don't view... I think that the more poetic thing is for the crew to disband. And this is something I've talked about in past videos, I could definitely see Luffy, like the story closing with Luffy's own death or passing or something like that. Voluntary, of course, not being killed by a bad guy, you know, but like a Gold Roger-esque moment. And I think a lot of the crew would go their separate ways and begin the next phase of their lives after that. So I don't know. I think that that's a happy ending in its own right. I think them just adventuring endlessly when they've already seen most of what there is to see. Although, to be fair, there would be new continents that come up once the Great Flood is drained, so there is much more to see. But then it wouldn't be ocean adventuring anymore, you know? They've seen the most interesting parts of the ocean. After that, we'll have a whole new land to explore, so I don't know. Maybe you could see them exploring the new land or something like that, but I feel like there's something more to, like, the purpose... The story is built on the idea of ships and ship sailing, so I don't know if that's quite the same thing. But yeah, I think, okay, we're going to get into it. I don't want to start pulling out the evidence too early. But my point being that the Straw Hats are not, it's not just Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji versus Luffy. If it's just Zoro and Sanji versus Luffy, I don't know if I don't think they win, possibly. Just Zoro and Sanji versus Luffy, I think it'll be a tough call. I don't think just Zoro and Sanji can do that to Luffy. I think the whole crew can, though. I think the whole crew together. I don't think everybody else is useless. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100 really quick. Lars Caesar, thanks for bringing a Pirate King to your member for 3 months. I hope you enjoyed the latest Pirate King podcast that came out last week. That was a fucking long one, by the way. The last Pirate King podcast I did, it snowballed. It was accidentally almost the longest one I ever did. It was like maybe the longest one I ever did. It's like an hour and 50 minutes. And a lot of it's video game discussion. Maybe that's why it ended up being so long. It just got me on a topic that I don't normally get to talk as much about. So, yeah, a lot of the questions are about video games, FromSoft, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, stuff like that. So, a lot of it is that. If you're interested in taking a look, it is online, obviously. So Lars says, the strong Straw Hats have all the support they need. Luffy will be fighting another advanced Conqueror's user, plus utility, bonus damage. I'd say Straw Hats win 9 out of 10. Yeah, I personally have the Straw Hats winning as well. We're going to lay it out on the whimsical whiteboard and everything like that and give arguments. but I do think the Strahds can take it. I think there is something to be said about more than the sum of its parts, you know? Hio, thanks for the 10. Theory, Blackbeard isn't trying to be like Rox, but Emu. Rox failed because he only had a crew, while Emu won because of an alliance. Hachinosu becomes New Kingdom and then forms alliance against world government. Oh, you're thinking Blackbeard's trying to form a big-ass alliance too to take out Emu. My theory, I viewed a little differently. I think that his pirate crew is his pirate crew. I think he's got, you know, captains and stuff like that, like lower-level ranking pirates underneath him, like Pinkbeard, but that's just by virtue of being an emperor. I think Blackbeard's true plan is a bit more conniving. I think, for example, he wants to become an official king under the world government, largely so that he could get access and potentially try and take out Emu and the Gorsei from the inside. I don't know if Blackbeard is genuinely trying to go into all-out war with the... I don't know if he thinks he can beat the world government straight up in an all-out war, although maybe finding out about the ancient weapons might change that. So we'll see. Rei, welcome to Pirate King. Thank you for joining. Thanks for the support, and definitely check out the newest Pirate King podcast that just came out. It is a fucking long one. I think I had a lot of fun doing that one, just because it's fucking long because I had a lot of fun doing it. I got to talk a lot about just my video game opinions and stuff like that, and opinions on other things as well, obviously. But I went very in depth in this one. Umair, thanks for the 5. Yo, Morj, been a while. How have you been? I've been good. Good to see you again. Haven't been able to catch a stream this summer. Have you started Elden Ring yet? Thoughts on recent One Piece chapters? Funny you should bring up Elden Ring, because that's what I was just talking about. I'm not playing Elden Ring just yet, simply because I'm getting to play Bloodborne right now. And once I get, for those of you who don't know, Bloodborne is made by From Software. It's a Soulsborne, Dark Souls basically game. My hope was to play all of those games before Elden Ring. Except for Dark Souls 2. Don't care about that one. So I'm getting to play Bloodborne. I was starting to think that I'm just not going to get to, and that I'll just have to start Elden Ring before getting to play Bloodborne. I'm very thankful that I was able to make a friend recently who does have a PlayStation 4 that I was able to borrow, so I'm playing Bloodborne right now. And I'm very much enjoying it. I'm currently lost, and I don't know the next step. So that's where I'm at in Bloodborne. So I actually did not have any fun playing it yesterday. For those of you who don't know, I guess I'm still in the earlier stages of Bloodborne. I just beat the Bloodstarved beast, so I'm feeling good about myself, but I don't really know where next to go. I think I'm supposed to go to Odeon Chapel or something like that, or Odeon something, but I don't know how to get there. So that's where I'm currently stuck, and I'm currently running around retracing my steps. And if I can't figure it out soon, I'm probably going to bite the bullet and just look it up, which I don't like doing, but in these Souls games, once in a while, you do have to look up. I never look up how to beat bosses. That's not a thing I ever look up, like how to overcome combat encounters, but when I'm lost, once in a while, I will look up, like, okay, what do I do next? Where do I go next? I swear, in Dark Souls 1, I genuinely think it's possible I would have quit the game before I found out how to go to the depths myself. I genuinely think that's possible, that I would have quit before finding out how to go to the depths. I think I might have done that. So that's like, I was really fucking lost. Like, what's the next step? It doesn't hold your hand at all. You beat the Undead Parish. Then it looks to me like Darkroot and all the Darkroot related things are next, but then I hit a dead end there, so I'm just like, where the fuck do I go now? Am I supposed to be going down to the skeletons and stuff? I just had to look it up, and I was like, okay, I have to go to the depths. Oh, this is not true. I did have to look up how to beat one boss in the Soulsborne series, which was Bed of Chaos, which I don't feel bad about at all, because I'd heard so many things about it. I did not feel bad at all about looking up how to beat it, because I was just like, this is stupid. This is not a real boss. This is some dumb bullshit challenge. Yeah, but in general, right now, I'm at a space where I'm just like, I might have to bite the bullet and just look up how to get to the next spot in Bloodborne, because I'm fucking lost. Here's the thing. I'm not even lost as in I don't know where I am. It's the opposite, where I know where everything is, I feel, except how to get to the next step, which means I'm missing something, and that's the most frustrating thing. Like, I'd actually prefer if I was just lost with no sense of direction, but that's not even the case. I feel like I know the general layout of everywhere that I've seen, and I just don't know how to get from point A to the next point B, because I just don't see the path to it. Jolly D. Joestar, thanks for the 5. How would you feel if some Strahds complete their goal in an epilogue/disband rather than in the story? Here is my take on it. I think, okay, so if I were to give an example, right? And I did some videos talking about how the story ends for each Straw Hat. I did that a while back, and I covered them in batches, like Zoro, Usopp, etc. in one video, Nami, Sanji, etc. in another video, stuff like that. But some things I talked about are basically like, so it's important that their dream manifests in some way and reaches some sort of a resolution in the context of the main story, even if they don't technically complete all aspects of it within the context of the main story. So, for example, Nami wants to draw a map of the world. Now, she can't technically do that because there's blues and such that she has not yet gone to, right? However, if we get to the end part of the story, I think Nami's dream to draw a map of the world does need to play a crucial component in the resolution of the story, and we do need to see some sort of point of inclusion of that, right? By that I mean, here's an easy example. Sure, she hasn't technically drawn all the blues, but let's say like we hit Laugh Tale very far at the end of the Grand Line, right? From now to the end of the story, we need to get back to likely where's the final war. The final war is likely in Morijua, right? Final War is likely in Morijua. There's no such thing as fast travel in the One Piece universe. You have to get to island, wait for the log post to reset, and then travel from there, right? But not if you have a map of the world, right? It's okay if Nami hasn't technically done all the blues or whatever, but I think it would be a great way to incorporate Nami's main dreams and goals in the climax of the story. If she's like, okay, we're like in terms of sailing back to Morijua, it would take us too long if we do the log post route, but I've been mapping our entire journey through the Grand Line and the New World, and therefore, in this moment, because I've sea-charted out the whole thing, we can just follow my maps, basically, and I'll be able to guide us directly back to Morijua at basically record-breaking speed, because there's no log post waiting. Sorry, I don't know if I've been mixing up with Pony. I don't know what I've been saying a second ago, but the log post needs to reset, right? If Nami's map of the Grand Line and the New World that she's been working on comes into play in some significant way, and it's like, no, we can get back using my skills as a navigator because I've drawn these maps, I'm confident in these maps, I know us how to get back to Morijua, like one direct straight shot, no log post bullshit needed. That would be huge. Like, that's a really, really good way. She's not technically doing her whole dream, but her dream is being pushed to the forefront and coming into play in a very, very significant way, right? At least she's drawn a map of the New World and the Grand Line in a way that comes in clutch at the end of the story, right? Similarly, Chopper, right? No, Chopper's probably not going to solve, like cure every single illness or whatever, but the dream in some symbolic way can be addressed in that, like, let's say Luffy gets the same disease as Roger, as many have speculated, and then it's some incurable disease, that bum Crocus couldn't cure it. Chopper's like, no, there's no such disease that can't be cured in the world, I can cure it, right? Because, like, at the end of the day, it's not like, I nailed this pretty well. Damn. Good chapter pick. Did I get it right? Right on the dot? Yeah. The main part of that dream is like, I'll become a doctor that can cure anything. So, in fact, it's not as though his dream is even that he's going to cure all diseases. His dream is that he'll become a doctor that can cure anything, right? So that's a little bit different. And he's saying there's no incurable diseases in this whole world. So, I mean, the dream is, in a sense, addressed by Chopper being presented an incurable disease and Chopper being like, I can cure it, right? And actually curing it, right? So in a sense, he has become a doctor that can cure things that can't be cured, right? This is the crux of the dream, right? Like, technically going around and curing every disease, that's the procedural, like, checking off a box aspect of the dream. But this is like the symbolic meaning of the dream, which is that there's no incurable diseases, right? I can cure anything. So Chopper curing some incurable disease that Luffy contracts would, in a sense, be symbolically, if not literally, addressing the dream. So in that sense, I think every Straw Hat's dream is in some way going to be relevant come the end of the story and meet some sort of resolution, even if there's technically other aspects to it that could be expanded on, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, if Nami's continuing to work on maps and shit in the epilogue, that's cool, as long as her map-making skills played a huge role in the actual main storyline, you know? Bleach? What's going on with Bleach? Leo Recto, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 15 months. Good evening, as always, Senor Morj. Thank you. Do you think Zunisha listening to Momo could imply Ryuma being ex-crewmate? Also, Zoro plus Sanji plus 1 could probably take Luffy. Okay, we're gonna let's break out the. Am I screen sharing even right now? Oh shit! I wasn't even screen sharing. This is what I was screen sharing. Fuck! You guys don't even realize what I was screen sharing. I was screen sharing this, right? You guys thought I was just talking to myself, pretty much. But I found this chapter, right? He's not even saying there's no incurable, or I'm gonna cure every disease. He's saying I'll become a doctor that can cure anything, right? So Chopper figuring out a way to cure Luffy, like an incurable disease, that would, in a sense, symbolically be proving the dream. Even if from then on you could argue, well, Chopper still has to go down the fucking medical books and like check off every single disease. That's its own thing. But I think symbolically, it's like Chopper becoming a doctor that can feasibly cure anything if given the challenge. That's my view on it. Zoro and Sanji. Okay, Ryuma. Okay, Ryuma being ex-crewmate. I think it's more so to do actually with. I don't think it's Ryuma specifically. That would also mean that Momonosuke is descended from Ryuma in a sense, which I don't think is necessarily true. But I do think Wano Country members being part of Joy Boy's crew is actually very, very likely. And in fact, if I had to do a guess, like a ballpark guess, I think that there's a much more likely candidate for why Momonosuke can command Zunisha. And that is, this would be probably chapter 963, 64. And that would be his mom, right? I am screen sharing this time, right? But if I had to give a wild guess, I would say why might Momonosuke be special special in a way that's even fucking passed down from the ancient kingdom? I think it might be his mom. I think it might be Toki, because I mean, just it's like it's implied she jumps through time. It's very, very likely that she came from the ancient kingdom time. Otherwise, what's even the point? So if Toki came from ancient kingdom time and then she has a child, her progeny might be able to carry that lineage, the whatever factor that she had that gives a connection to Zunisha, you know? I think there's a good chance of that. And I also think it's interesting that if you look at the adventures that these guys had, right? If you look at the adventures, I think they drop off Toki. I think they drop Toki off before they go to Zoe, which I thought is interesting. Yeah, Toki falls ill. And so Toki falls ill, they drop her off, and then they go to Zoe. So Oda kind of avoided that little situation of Toki seeing Zunisha. So, I don't know. I think that's just something a little bit interesting. I think if there's some lineage thing that matters here, I feel like Toki is the one that's more important than like a Ryuma or hypothetical, something like that. But don't you think that's kind of interesting? That Oda makes sure that Toki gets dropped off a little bit before they get to the Zoe situation. I don't know. I think there might be something to that. Jolly D. Joestar, thanks for the 5. Did Oda not give Chopper Haki so he can naturally counter Doc Q's Devil Fruit attacks? I think that's a great point. I think it's just Chopper's also very physically strong, so maybe he doesn't even need Haki in that sense. Like he could just keep improving his transformations and more brute strength. But yeah, that's a really, really good point, because like look at this bum. Like if we look at the bum, right? What chapter does this happen? Here? Oh, it might be 1064. Yeah, so if we look at the bum, how does he deal? So he calls himself a doctor, right? He calls himself a doctor. That's the previous chapter. He calls himself a doctor, the surgeon of death, in fact. And he has every tool imaginable, every imaginable tool, magic tool, to help him deal with like doctor shit, right? Like he has the perfect fruit for it. He literally has the operation room fruit. And, you know, the way that he deals with diseases and stuff like that, it's just by cheating. Where does he transform? Where does he deal with it? Yeah, here. He just does this. There's no medical science applied, period. I have half a mind to believe that this guy's barely a real doctor. I don't think he's a real doctor, in my opinion. I think if he didn't have that fruit, he's carried by his fruit in every way. If you take away the fruit, is he a good fighter? No. If you take away the fruit, is he a good doctor? No. What is he without the fruit? He's just some dude. The Outback Pandas, welcome to the Yonko. Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate it. And yeah, man, always good to see you in streams. So I hope you enjoy. I feel like you've been Yonko tier before. I just don't remember. But I hope you enjoy the weekly podcast, man. Anyway. Raffy DeGoats' kid is the bum lord, not Law. No, they're both bums. They're the bum duo. Gerard, thanks for the 2. Hi, Morj. Sorry I'm late. Were you on time? I was on time. Everyone tell Gerard I was on time. I was close to on time. I was very, very close to on time. Anyway. Someone call him Flaw? That's a good way to put it. Shogun says he's a surgeon. I don't care. That ruins the point that I'm making. I don't care what type of doctor he is. Chopper can do surgery, and he's not sitting around. He can do surgery. He can do pharmacy. He can do... Does Chopper do surgery? He can do blood transfusions. He just does all of the things, right? These are fictional doctors. Fictional doctors, you just expect them to be able to do all doctor things, like fantasy doctors, you know? Like, you don't fucking have, like, a fantasy doctor and be like, oh, I'm sorry, that's not my area of expertise. I only work with fucking, like, bones or some shit, you know? You ever hear Chopper say some shit like that? No. And Chopper's just a reindeer, right? So Law should be, I mean, he is human facilities, right? Like, he's got thumbs and shit like that. Does Chopper have thumbs? No. He has these fucking, like, pincer type, hoof type things, right? And Law, you never hear Chopper complaining about how he can't do surgery or anything like that. Anyway, back to the main point of the stream. I say back to as if we've been onto that at all. All right, we're going to the main point of the stream. We're going to it. Also, can anyone fill me in? Did the Shanks versus Kid episode happen yet? When's Shanks versus Kid happening? When's that episode happening? Shogun says Chopper sold his Law in a hospital, to be fair. Yeah. Chopper's obviously better in a hospital. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Wait, did it already happen? Did Shanks already fight Kid? Because I was going to react to that episode. This Saturday, next week? Okay. All right. I'll react to that when the time comes. All right. So nothing happened this week as far as I know. Okay, cool. All right, guys. Wait, I was also supposed to... Oh, I was going to watch the Sakamoto Days trailer. Or have I seen that already? Guys, have I already watched the Sakamoto Days trailer on stream? I don't remember. There was something I remember from last stream that I was supposed to react to at the end of the stream that I didn't. If anybody remembers what it is, just tell me. Tutorial Boss says, like an obedient dog. I like the video when commanded. Thank you, Tutorial Boss. I appreciate it. All right. Let me make a new thing. All right. Create new. Okay. All right. Here we go. Kinnikuman? I don't know what that is. Morj hates kids so much that he'll tune in for the anime. No, I just think that the anime is going to do... I think that's a really cool moment, and I know the anime is going to go hard on it, you know? I think I promised, after I watched... I think it was two things. I think after seeing some of the early things from Egghead that you guys showed me, I remember I kind of promised that for big episodes, I would do reactions. We just haven't really had a big episode in a while. You guys were telling me to watch Luffy versus Lucci. I begrudgingly did that. I was kind of like, well, it's probably not going to be, like, I just didn't think it's that important of a fight for me to watch. But the anime obviously did a phenomenal job, so I stood corrected. And then you guys were saying, like, I have to watch Zoro versus a fucking Seraphim. And then I was really like, okay, you guys just don't know what a good episode is. But then I watched that clip and I was like, okay, never mind. That shit was amazing. So, so far, I've stuck to the mentality of, like, I will only watch the episodes that that I expect to be really good, like Shanks versus Kid, like Garp versus Aokiji and the Blackbeard Pirates, all of that. That was the plan, but it seems like Toei's turning on the jets for a few random clips here and there too, like a few random fights and skirmishes here and there. So I will watch those as well if you guys push enough. So Shanks versus Kid I already had in my agenda of things to watch. Next up after that will be Garp's raid on Hachinosu. I will watch that. Beyond that, Luffy versus Kizaru. I'll watch that. You guys know the things. Like I'll watch Saturn's reveal. I'll watch the Gorosei being summoned. Shit like that. Okay. Kinnikuman? Yeah, I don't know Kinnikuman. The anime has to do the scene justice. Yeah, because I feel like the last time I feel like the Wano anime might have been suffering some burnout at the end of it because they already spent all their I don't know how budgets work, but they already did a lot for it in the concluding fights of Onigashima. So, in a scene that a lot of people kind of thought was going to be really, really good, like Shanks scaring off Green Bull, was really, really ass. I think they were just gearing up for the next shit, basically, at that point, you know? All right, I don't know what's being debated here. Some shit about Kaido, but all right. All right, Luffy versus the Straw Hats. The reason, does anyone know why this is coming up? Why I'm talking about this right now? I'm talking about this right now because of the latest One Piece chapter. This sparked some discussion. This chapter. Because what we got was Luffy grabbing Mars and being like, what even happened here? Oh, yeah. Luffy grabbing Mars and then asking several of the hardest hitting Straw Hats to basically just go to town, beating him up, dealing damage to him, right? And then Luffy launching Mars and all that shit, right? So this was basically what Luffy rolled with. And its attacks from, it's arguably Sanji's, it's the strongest attack that it's the strongest single kick that we probably can imagine Sanji does at the moment. I'm sure next time Sanji gets a significant 1v1, he will have a stronger attack. But at this moment in time, it's like, okay, yeah, if we were to imagine what Sanji's strongest kick would be, single kick, singular, it would probably be something like Hell's Memories, Ifrit Jambe, right? That's what most people would kind of have guessed. So it's using, like, Bonnie we already know is fairly powerful as a character. This is probably the strongest attack that she's ever done. And then Frankie, Frankie actually did a fairly basic attack, but this is probably his highest basic impact attack that's not like a laser or some shit. I'm surprised he didn't do a coup d'event. Coup d'event or something like that would have made a lot of sense here in my opinion. Okay. Half the Strahds get one-shotted. Yeah, that's true. Okay, we're gonna look. Half the Strahds do get one-shotted, but I think that it depends on, I don't think it's gonna be that easy. I don't think Luffy can get to them that easy, right? So the way we're gonna do this is divide shit up, all right? Luffy's side versus, first thing we're gonna do is a poll. We're gonna do a poll, and then we're gonna, how do I make lines? How do I do shapes? These are shapes. No, these are templates. Shapes? Give me a shape. Shape. Icon? These aren't shapes. I could do, oh shit, look at this. Animals in nature. Wait, this is kind of cool. How's this relevant to right now? Nothing. It's not. You guys are so easily distracted. Sections. That sounds like shapes, but they're not, huh? All right. Give me shapes plus. Oh. Well, now I feel overwhelmed. Okay. A mind map. Oh my god. What do I do with this? One Piece. And then you map out some shit. Gold Roger. How do I map out something this way? Okay, this is to be figured out at another point, but this is pretty cool. Okay, we're back to wanting shapes. Where do I find shapes? How do I create shapes? Diagram shapes, there we go. What I actually want is more so a line. There we go, line. There we go. This is what I wanted all along. I wanted a line. A simple line. Nothing too fancy. How do I make this more bold and dramatic? Make it more bold and dramatic. This line sucks. Make the line bigger. The fuck? You guys can barely even see this line. You guys are disappointed in this line, I can tell. You want something more significant, right? Something like that really speaks to you. I'm actually so upset with this line. How do I... Okay, so what if I make another line? Now we have 2 lines. I don't know if that helps us that much. This is really bumming me out, man. Add a second line? So I just keep adding lines until we have the thickness of one individual line? Alright, you know what? That's not our... What did I just do? Okay, that's not the worst plan in the world. It's not a good plan, but it's not literally the worst plan in the world. We could work with that. It's too difficult. Okay, hold on. Alright, now we add this line here. But you can see the gap. Maybe we can add another line in between the gap. No, we can't. Okay, just pretend there's no gaps. Pretend there's no gaps. Okay, if we just... Okay, this is stupid. There's got to be a better way to do this. Okay. Hold on. So, these are our options. Why is bolding the line... Jolly D Joestar says OP editor says Egghead hasn't reached climax. What is it at right now then? The fucking where is it right now? What do you mean the OP editor? When did he say this? When did he make this claim? This sounds suspicious. I should be able to enlarge this line. That's my point of that's how I feel about this. This line I should be able to do a lot more. All right, you know what? It's good enough. It's good enough. Here, let me move this line a little bit over. There we go. Yeah. There we go. All right. Okay. Pretty good. All right. Pretty good. Egghead is misquote. Oh, Sandman. Can somebody... Cheesy Skull says, if this isn't the climax, I quit. Why? Like, it could get more hype. What if Emu shows up? I don't know. I think they use climax very broadly, right? There's probably just more excited things. Ceiling Stain says, the editor said that there will be an even bigger shock than the Vegapunk speech reveals. Okay. That, I mean, like, the Vegapunk speech... Hold on. The thing about the Vegapunk speech... Vegapunk's entire speech. The thing about Vegapunk's entire speech is that it's long, but it's not like... It is very long. It is very long. Here we go. Let's look at this, right? Thank you to Weed1148 for writing this up. I've committed 2 sins. Therefore, when I'm arrested or executed... So if we skim this, right? In terms of reveals, he has a long intro. He explains that there's an earthquake that's going to strike the planet. The sea should rise. So he talks about things we already know, right? Then he reveals that he reveals the Void Century. He reveals... Where's new information? New information comes... Okay, he basically tells us things that we already speculated, which is that Joy Boy had the Nika fruit. Reveals that Joy Boy was the first pirate. He then reveals ancient weapons were used during the Void Century. We kind of knew that. Then he reveals that the world is actually supposed to be the real world is under the sea. That's the biggest reveal, in my opinion. Biased because I did a video predicting that, but that is the biggest reveal as far as we can tell. Then he reveals that there's the Mother Flame. He gives some input on the Mother Flame. fire that never goes out. It's an energy source. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, and then he basically reveals that the mother flame was used for that. So again, no new information here. Yeah, that's the thing. There's not that much. So if we were to really, really boil down this shit, the pieces of new information from Vegapunk's speech are pretty much just that the true world of One Piece is under the sea, that Joy Boy was the first pirate, and he was really the one that, like, when he went down, the Ancient Kingdom went down. That's pretty much it. Oh, and the 5 meters thing. That's big. And we've got like five shots at. Well, he doesn't say that. Doflamingo actually says that, but yeah, actually, Vegapunk doesn't even reveal the 5 shots thing. So that's pretty much it. He doesn't give us, the viewer, that much new information. He really doesn't, right? That's why when the editor says that there's going to be something even more shocking than Vegapunk's speech, it's kind of like, well, Vegapunk's speech didn't tell us that much shit. It was mostly for the people of the world to find out. So I can imagine that there's a lot more that can still happen. Mihawk D. Goat, thanks for being a yarn code here, member, for 10 months. Back to your stream about One Piece swordsman. Even if Shanks has other ways of fighting, he's at his strongest with his sword. Mihawk greater than Shanks. Maybe he is at his strongest with his sword. In which case, yes, Mihawk would be greater than Shanks. Keenan, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for the 10. Always good to see you. Finally got my girl to watch One Piece. She just saw Luffy tell Zoro to save Smoker in Alabasta, and now thinks Smoker will join the crew. Interesting. Couldn't help but think of you lol catching the VOD tonight, the sea event. So, my girlfriend has just started watching One Piece as well, independent of me, and she's at, as far as I remember, she might be watching the stream, I don't know. She's in Usopp's arc, basically. So, you know, there's not too much to talk about just yet, because you really have to get through, she's also seen the live action, you really have to get through all of East Blue before things start happening. Right now, it's really just focused on telling good short stories, basically, right? That's where the focus of One Piece is. But Alabasta is the first time that I would say, like, shit really goes down in One Piece, and you start to open up your mind to, like, how big the stories can kind of get. She just saw Luffy to Toastmos. Yeah, tell her that I also believe that Smoker still has a shot at joining. Not as much anymore, obviously, but it is what it is. Okay. Sean Easton, thanks for the 5. Morj, you should see the Sanji versus S Shark fight. It's quick, but compared to the S Hawk fight, it's like 2 minutes. Is it good? Is it good? It's ass, though. No. Is it... Wait, what the fuck? Is it not good? See, I know that Toei regularly deals with accusations that they favor Zoro over Sanji, but if they did a shit ton of stuff for the S Hawk fight, but not for Sanji versus S Shark, I think that'd be pretty damning. Especially because I think most would agree that in the manga, at least, right? About here, I think in the manga, at least, right? No, it's actually probably going to be 1080 or something like that, right? 1080, 1079, 1078. Yeah, like, at least in the manga, the Zoro and Sanji versus the Seraphim wasn't that impressive. It was kind of, like, that wasn't like a hype moment for them, exactly. You know what I mean? It was kind of, if anything, it was just like, wait, why can't they beat the Seraphim? You know, why aren't they using their strongest shit? Compared to, like, Sanji taking on the Seraphim, Sanji versus S Shark was kind of his most hype moment in a long-ass time, if you guys remember. So, like, the moment where the S Shark hits him and nothing happens. This, if I recall, was the most hype moment for Sanji in a long-ass time, because it was the first time in a long time that you have a chapter where Sanji looks really cool, whereas Zoro and Luffy are shown to just be struggling. So I remember this was, like, hyped up a lot by Sanji fans. So I think that's kind of damning if Toei didn't really, put effort into it. BeatGamer99 says just tanks the punch and that's it. Yeah, but it's also just like, you know, in the previous scenes, like Luffy and Zoro versus the Seraphim, not much happens there either. But Toei chose to elaborate on that quite a bit. Isn't that kind of unfair? You know, that the scene that was actually hype in the manga, Sanji's scene, that's the one that they choose not to do anything for. I don't know. I think I think that's not really cool. Because Zoro and Luffy versus them, it's just not really much to it, right? I mean, it's basically just showing them doing a move against the Seraphim and the move not working. Oh well, there's this kick and then Zoro dodges, but it's not really like these weren't considered hype moments. It was more so just like, wait, Zoro and Luffy should be able to do stuff to the Seraphim, whereas Sanji's scene was a hype moment. Snab! Thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 21 months, man. Hi, Morj. New update from Japan. The girl I like asked if I wanted to meet her again. Whoa! She's been at work a lot, so waited a long time. Wish me the best. Whoa! Oh, okay, that's awesome. Damn. Went to Japan, got yourself got yourself a Japanese girlfriend? I don't know. Who knows? You're living the dream for a lot of American weebs, so congratulations, man. All right. Let's get into it. So first, before we get into this shit, we need to do a poll as to the people's opinion. And then after that, I will be leading discussion and arguments in favor of or against, and we'll see if people change their mind by the end. All right. Luffy versus the crew. Luffy, Straw Hats. Oh, in the meantime, a great question from Kelvin. Thanks for the 5. I just bought Sekiro recently. In your opinion, how hard is it compared to other Souls games? I played Demon Souls and Elden Ring. So, in my opinion, so you guys gotta understand, I played Sekiro first. Sekiro was the first of these From Software games I ever played. I never had interest in Dark Souls or even like Elden Ring or anything like that because I just wasn't that type of gamer. I barely played single player games in the first place. I only would ever play like Zelda or like Mario once in a while. I played Sekiro because I was just at a point where I was like, it was very stressful, I think. Just general life things was very stressful. And I was like, I need like a game where I can blow off steam. So I wanted a game that had really, really good combat, specifically like sword combat. That's all I want. I was like, I just want a game with some really good sword combat. Everywhere I looked said Sekiro was the best for that. So I picked up Sekiro. I did understand once I kind of like read online opinion a bit that like this is supposed to be an insanely difficult game. It's from the same people as Dark Souls and stuff like that. So I'm playing Sekiro. I'm heading into Sekiro with the context that this is insanely difficult. And I think that helped me a lot because knowing that it's difficult makes you like knowing that it's supposed to be really difficult and you're supposed to fail a lot. And a lot of people find this really difficult. That almost makes it easier. Because if I'd just gone in blind, not knowing, I'd been just like, wow, I'm just really bad at this game. Like everything I can't kill anything. Everything kills me. Anyway, so Sekiro was my first time really getting that From Software experience. Now, because I played Sekiro first, a lot of people who've played the other From Software games and then go to Sekiro, they find Sekiro harder because Sekiro doesn't have any sort of real... There's a couple reasons. I think Sekiro doesn't have any real avenues to beating bosses outside of just getting good enough at the game's combat system to beat the bosses, right? So in Dark Souls and like other From Software games, in theory, you can summon, right? You can summon stuff to help you, or you could even summon other players to help you, or you could there's a lot more items that are helpful. You can level up, right? Like, so based on how much you level or the type of weapon that you have, you can make some things easier. There's like workarounds to a lot of the difficulty. I think there's even like magic and stuff like that. But Sekiro, it's just you and the sword. And like, even though there's some items, they're not gonna like win you a boss fight, you know? Here's the thing. So I played Sekiro very simply. I never even used prosthetics in the first place, right? So I'm playing Sekiro just straight through normally, right? And I beat Sekiro. After that, then I go and play Dark Souls and stuff. because I'm already coming in with the Sekiro mentality of like, you're just supposed, like, Sekiro has trained me to just like want to beat the bosses straight up, right? So once I'm playing Dark Souls, I'm not using like even stuff like lightning resin, like lightning pine resin stuff. I don't use that. Summoning, I don't do that. I'm playing offline the entire time, so there's no other player interaction. I never summon. I killed Solaire the first time around. I didn't really realize that you're supposed to get this guy's help as an NPC. That just like the concept of like a lot of ways that like people did workarounds in the other games before then going to Sekiro and not having those workarounds. I started with Sekiro, so I'm hopping into Dark Souls and stuff, and like there's all this other random bullshit that you can do. I kind of just tunnel vision and play the same way that I would have played in Sekiro. I get my Uchi Katana, which is a katana. I don't use a shield. I just use my Uchi Katana. And yeah, I treat it like Sekiro, but it's like dodging and rolling instead of deflecting. And that's just how I treated Dark Souls, same way I treated Dark Souls 3. So, with that context in mind, I don't know if that makes sense. A lot of the reason people find Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3 and like the other stuff easier than Sekiro is because there's workarounds in those games, like the summoning, like the items, like all that stuff, like leveling yourself up, that allows them to progress with like when they're maybe stuck, which you don't get in Sekiro, because Sekiro you have to play more bare bones. I started with Sekiro, so I'm already used to the bare bones mentality. So when I'm switching over, I'm just consciously playing more like like that's just how I prefer to play. Like there's never a time where I'm like, oh, let me put on like some lightning pine resin to make this boss easier, because like for me that's almost like mentally admitting defeat, if that makes sense. So I have I already played the Dark Souls 3, and now Bloodborne games with the Sekiro mentality, because that's what I started with. Because of that, long story really long. Because of that, I find these games equally as hard as Sekiro, okay? Because it's just the way I'm playing is very similar. There's some differences in that Dark Souls bosses are way easier than Sekiro bosses. However, Dark Souls general minute-to-minute challenges, like how you're just traversing the area, getting lost, not knowing what to do next, random things in the environment killing you, being stuck at just like, how do I get past this series of enemies? That's more frequent than in Sekiro. Sekiro, it's really the bosses that are consistently very hard. Dark Souls 3, it has a wider range of bosses. I found some harder than Sekiro's hardest bosses, but a lot of them easier. I'd say Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro is very similar difficulty for me. And Bloodborne I'm new to, so I will give my opinions on that much later. Anyway, sorry for the long tangent on that, but I just like talking about those games. Dark Souls 3 took me the longest to kind of get good at the combat system, I'll say that. Sekiro has the most consistently difficult bosses, I'll say that. But Dark Souls 3 had the most difficult bosses. It just took me a long time to learn Dark Souls 3's, like get used to Dark Souls 3 combat system, because I kept playing it like Dark Souls 1, which is really not what it should be like. I think if you want most consistent challenge from start to finish, it's still probably Sekiro. But Dark Souls 1, there's an aspect to the challenge which is just like, you might just never progress. Like, you could just literally never progress because you just get stuck in certain ways. And Dark Souls 3, I think a lot of the day-to-day, like, just running around stuff is pretty easy, like, traversing a level. But some of the bosses can be really, really, really fucking hard if you don't learn the combat system well. It's hard to explain. Yeah. Like, the hardest bosses I've ever had to overcome were Dark Souls 3. But Sekiro is more consistently hard. That's it. All right. Let's move it along. Why are people talking about Warkiri? How strong is Warkiri? I think right now, Warkiri's strength depends a lot on how we're supposed to interpret the ancient robots. Because if I were to just jot down notes on Warkiri, right? Warkiri notes. Right? This is random, right? But because people are talking about Warkiri, there's not really anything shown as a weakness to Warkiri so far. Like what is he bad at? I don't know. Like, in terms of physically toughest character ever in One Piece. He's the physically toughest character ever in One Piece. Gear 5 Luffy so far. can't even hurt him. Literally hurts himself trying to hit him, right? So that's one. Warcury is very likely the strongest of the Gorosei. So it depends how you view the Gorosei, right? If you say, hey, Venus Juro is likely Zoro's final opponent, right? Do people think that? Let me say this. Is Venus Juro Zoro's final opponent? Cheesy Skull says, doesn't Warcury get destroyed by someone with great mobility? I think he gets destroyed by Kaido. No, because the problem is that it doesn't, like, so far the problem is you can't really damage Warcury. He's the ultimate tank that we've seen in the story so far. Like, you can be mobile. You can be very mobile. That's not the issue, right? The issue is if you try and hit him, it doesn't work. So far. Emith was able to do it. Whoops. 11:15. So we kind of need to understand if that's like Emith using a weakness or some technique we don't understand, or if Emith is just physically really, really, really fucking strong, you know? Like, this is a strong attack that Luffy's throwing out, you know? This is a strong attack. This is Gear 5th. This is like giant punch. This is it's one thing that it doesn't work, but it's not that it doesn't work. It just straight up like it hurts Luffy, right? That's totally new. As of right now, Luffy himself doesn't know what to do about the boar, as he says, right? What did he talk about the boar? He says some shit about the boar. Maybe it's the next chapter. I forget. Luffy says some shit about the boar. About it having a hard head. What does he say? What does he say about the boar? So he knocks him away. And then this shit's happening. Oh yeah, the boar's coming. There goes the boar. Watch out. He's really, really sturdy. Yeah. There's nothing to really say other than Emith can damage him, right? So Emith can damage him. Okay. So a lot of people don't think Venus Juro is, like, maybe Venus Juro is, maybe he's not. But either way, he's likely one of the strongest characters that we ever see Zoro go up against or whatever. If you think, my feeling so far has been that the Gorosei are supposed to be viewed as, like, at least Admiral level, right? Warcury is very likely the strongest of the Gorosei. Gorosei seem to be portrayed as at least Admiral level-ish. Warcury has crazy, unprecedented... No, not unprecedented. Shanks has comparable Conqueror's Haki Rage. Crazy high Conqueror's Haki amount. Offensively, he beat Emith in one hit, but he actually didn't, though, right? He beat Emith in one hit, kind of. Hey, what was the results for the Luffy versus the crew thing? Okay, most people, 60% say Luffy takes the Straw Hats. Interesting. Luffy has Warcury is crazy high Conqueror's Haki amount. Tom says Morj, anime fans greatly underestimate the advantage of numbers. That's true. Like, I don't know if people remember, but going into the rooftop battle, a lot of people, like, for a long time in the Wano arc, people were saying that all the supernovas would have to combine together to fight Kaido at all. Like, that was a legitimate discussion. All the supernovas would have to fight Kaido just to have a shot. In the end, it turned out that 5v2 versus Kaido and Big Mom is basically good enough. That's basically what it turned out to be. It made sense at the time because if you look at, if you looked at this, if you looked at Kaido one-shotting Luffy, right? Whoops. If you looked at like Act 1 where Kaido just one-shots Luffy, it kind of made sense because it was like, well, Luffy's the strongest supernova, and that we all assumed Luffy was the strongest supernova, which he was at the time. Luffy's the strongest supernova, and Kaido can just like casually one-shot him. So then couldn't you just do that to everybody? But then in terms of how the fight's actually written afterwards, it was more even. Granted, Luffy had gotten power-ups by that point, but even then, Kaido wasn't just one-shotting Killer, even though theoretically he could have. It's just not the way shit went down, because there's other things that get in the way, right? So Warcury is crazy. If we're saying like how strong Warcury is right now, I think physically toughest character ever. He has fire powers. Does Warcury have fire powers? Ender Anami says Kaido one-shotting post-Katakuri Luffy definitely made it out to look like jumping Kaido was the only option, lol. Yeah, and it felt more like how do you even do it? How do you... Okay, if everybody combines then... But Kaido can just one-tap everybody. But yeah, it's just the reality of the situation is it just didn't play out like that, right? Kaido theoretically should have been able to one-shot Killer, right? It's like you should have just 1 second and then the fight's down to a 2v4, right? Theoretically, a few hits should take out Kid. But, it's just not the way it went down, Remix King, thanks for the 2. Morj was 6v2, can't forget the TNT. Oh, I wasn't even counting that shit. I was just talking about, during the rooftop section of the fight where it pretty much was even between the Supernova and the Yonko. If we're getting into, what happens later on, you're very much correct, Remix King, which is that, to be fair, Kid and Law together they were helpless against Big Mom, right? Basically, they're practically useless. They couldn't do anything. So it was the TNT that had to do it. So it is a tough call to say Strahd versus Luffy. I don't know. Warcury does have fire powers, right? Cooper064 says he seems to be on fire, but I don't know what more. Does Warcury have... Sanji will not allow Luffy to blitz the trio, says Anis23. I agree. And here's the thing. If Luffy did blitz the trio, you know what would change? Nothing. Chopper has 0 contribution to this fight. Nami is normally extremely useful in team fights. That's actually almost where she's at her strongest because Nami has, extremely powerful offensive abilities, but just everything else about her, glass cannon, yada yada yada. She's weak in one-on-one fights to a degree because she doesn't get the time to set up and do all that shit. But in team fights, like against Oars or against the Pacifista, Nami's amazing because she's got the firepower to do so much if she's allowed the space to do it. Luffy, it's an exception. She can't do lightning against Luffy, and snow and shit is not going to be that effective. Snow, wind, it's just not going to do the trick against him. So, Nami, Luffy could take her out. Doesn't really matter. Chopper, Luffy could take him out. I just don't think it would make a difference. Usopp could make a difference. Usopp actually could make a difference. Why do I think Usopp could make a difference? I got to think on that. For some reason, I feel like Usopp could make a difference. I guess I'm just thinking back to when Usopp really... when Usopp had prep time and everything like that, he was very effective against Luffy. Let's say the Strahds don't get prep time here. It's just a fight. Akash Panda says, Morj, it wasn't TNT, it was gravity. Whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. Sleeping Danger says, do the Strahds get prep time? No, but everybody is fresh. Okay, let's do the rules. Gerard Williams, thanks a lot for the 2. Mirage Tempo. That's a good point. Very good point. That could actually help quite a bit. In theory, observation hockey should negate that, but we know that shit's inconsistent throughout the series, right? If Garp can get clipped by Shiryu, then that means that, which is essentially similar to Mirage Tempo, right? Not being able to see the opponent. Then we can assume Mirage Tempo could be useful. Let's see. The rules. Okay. No prep time, but everyone is fresh and has their... Wait. Can you guys see this? Everyone is fresh and has their best equipment. Right? So everyone is fresh and has their best equipment. Best equipment meaning like Frankie has his Shogun suit and everything like that. Zoro's got all of his swords, obviously. Are they the only ones that fucking use tools? Usopp's got his standard, all of his usual gear. Nami's got the climate attack and Zeus and everything like that. Chopper's got his rumble balls. The usual stuff. Everyone is fresh, has their best equipment, okay? Arena is... They are in character, meaning they can get... No, not in... No, I'll just say bloodlusted. How about that? No, okay, Luffy is bloodlusted. Yeah. Luffy is bloodlusted. Arena, how much does the arena matter? I don't think the arena matters that much. Remix King says, does Luffy have access to any food? No. No access to food. Luffy does have access to food. He does have access to food. He does have access to food because he could kill and eat Chopper. That is allowed because he is bloodlusted, not in character right now. But I don't think Luffy's ever done something like that in combat. So I don't think Luffy would do that, you know? Like, bloodlusted doesn't mean insane. Like, let's not say it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's angry, like he's trying to kill, like, not kill, but he's trying to defeat, like, Crocodile or something like that, right? But even, I think even in the heat of battle, Luffy's not going to, like, beat up Arlong and eat him, you know? So Luffy, I don't think Luffy's going to eat Chopper or Jinbei, despite them being an animal and a fish, right? So he's not going to do that. So he does not have access to food. Yokai Gota says, more to think you might have missed my super. Shit. All right, let's see. Sorry, man. I'll add real quick before I get characters not allowed to get stronger and have hockey blooms mid-fight. Let me move this other shit down. Yokai Gota, let me get you. Just 1 second. If you're curious about the Warcry stuff, we'll get back to that in a second. Okay. Yokai Gota said... What did you say? Oh, this was a while back. I'm sorry. So the Vivre cards... Thanks a lot, Yokai. Thanks for the 5. Vivre cards confirmed Bonnie has armament while Frank... Whoa! Okay, no. Confirmed Bonnie's armament while Frankie doesn't. Yeah, I didn't think Frankie does. But I think the Vivre cards are not consistent with labeling characters who have hockey and don't have hockey. For example, I think Nekomamushi was not listed as having armament hockey, whereas Inuarashi was. I think Ace was not listed as having armament hockey, whereas the novel said that Ace did have armament hockey. Stuff like that. Also, this girl at work kept on inviting me over to do my taxes. Was she flirting with me? This is actually an interesting question. She kept inviting me over to do my taxes. Like, inviting you over where? Like, hold on, we all have to pause. Yokai Gota, inviting you over where? Like, to her desk? To her desk or an alternate location? And to do your taxes? And is that part of her job whatsoever? I imagine no. What's the arena, by the way? Yeah, she's not gonna... What do you call? Yokagota says she wanted to come to my house. We work at a grocery store. Wait. Yeah. No, she definitely... No, come on. She's definitely into you. Women do not invite themselves over to a guy's place to do... Like, women do not just invite themselves over to a guy's place just like that if they're not interested... If you're just a coworker or something like that to her. Kiyokami says bro thinks getting audited is flirting. It actually, like, she's finding an excuse to basically spend time with him. Yeah, that's guaranteed something. That is guaranteed. There's absolutely no there's nothing else there. She's just trying to find an activity that's like an excuse to basically do something with you. Like, it's very, very clearly, yeah, come on. Yokai Gota says I always have Grinder, I guess. No, that's 100% she's flirting with you. You don't need Grinder. Don't worry about that. Tom says Morj has never heard of platonic friendships. That's not what a platonic friendship is, though. If it's just... How do I explain? Because women aren't stupid, and women are generally very, very conscious of the type of signals that they give off to men, where they draw certain boundaries with platonic friendships. Women, especially if... There's a difference between, like, if you've been friends with a girl for, like, a long time, like, genuine platonic friends, right? For a long, long, long time, and then it's stuff like, oh, well, we could just... like, doing something at one person's place or another, it doesn't become that weird. This is very different, whereas this is his coworker at a grocery store, right? So it's not like they're longtime friends. It does not sound like they do things organically outside of work, which means that this is her basically trying to find an excuse for them to do something outside of work. And if she's trying to do it at this guy's place, at Yokai Gota's place, that's very, very, very blatant. Like, that's just, like, it's very, 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 very obvious. I suggest if you ask any girl, would you do that with a male coworker at a grocery store, invite yourself over to his place for the excuse of trying to do his taxes or something like that? No, they're not just going to do that for, oh, I'm just a platonic friend that wants to hang out at your place and do taxes. That's not a thing. Yes, platonic friendships do exist, but the context of this is very different. K Maya, thanks for the 2. Pirate Docking 2.0 versus Gear 5th Luffy, now with Robin. I feel like that okay, we gotta ban that. That's not fair. Pirate Docking not allowed because it would be too easy. And we want this to be competitive. All right, where's the arena? The arena doesn't really matter, right? Arena rooftop of Onigashima. How about that? Rooftop of Onigashima. Why'd I pick that as the arena? Doesn't matter. Tom says, what if she's using him just to get her taxes done? I thought Yokai Gota said that she wanted to come over to do his taxes. If she's trying to get him to do her taxes, then she might actually just be using him. But from what I read, unless I misread this, let's see. Yeah, she said that she wants to come over to do his taxes. Yeah, that's an easy. Come on, she's flirting with him. That's not even flirting. She's trying to set up something. There's no question about that. Arena matters for Jinbei. Ooh, that's true. Yeah, if it's like near the water, Jinbei's got a lot more to work with. Okay. Should it be okay? Okay. So this is actually a deciding question then. Should it be near water? Example, Marine Ford, or totally separate? Example, rooftop of Onigashima. Near water. That's actually that actually matters a lot. Especially considering water is one of Luffy's weaknesses. That's a huge, that makes a huge difference. Okay, arena. We'll do near Marine Ford. Or Marine Ford. Empty Marine Ford. I like that. Okay. No prep time. Everyone is fresh, has their best equipment. Luffy is bloodlusted, no access to food. Should Luffy be allowed to... No, Luffy just would... Luffy could eat Jinbei and Chopper for food, right? So do we want, like... Do we want the in-character but angry version of Luffy? In-character but angry basically means, like the version of Luffy that fights, like, a Lucci or a Crocodile or something like that. Or do we want just, like, an absolute bloodlusted, anything-goes Luffy? If we want absolute bloodlusted, anything-goes Luffy who would be willing to eat other sentient beings, that's very different. So let's do that. In character, but pissed Luffy. Example, Lucci Crocodile. Or no morals Luffy. Eat Jinbei Chopper. Okay, so in character bloodlusted or bloodlusted no morals. That's a big difference. Gerard Williams, thanks for the 2. Luffy bounces off water or pulls out the straw. That's true. Luffy can just turn the water into rubber now, right? It's still a thing, right? Like Jinbei trying to access the water, use the water to splash him, stuff like that. Cat with a Gat says, eat Chopper is crazy. No, it's not. He was literally going to do it when he met him. That was the agenda. It would have happened. Possibly. It was almost a thing. This is, like, come on. And it's not that far off. Like, look at this shit, right? If we look at... If we look at when Luffy landed in Amazon Lily. Oh, this is a beautiful shot. I really like this. I think this is the day-night cycle shit. Okay. If we land here... Okay, so watch this boar. So this boar shows up. Luffy is being chased by this boar. He tries to punch through. The boar is panicking. Luffy sees the boar. Luffy eats the boar. Okay? This is in character for Luffy to eat animals. Like, fast. Did he cook him? Did he cook him? There's smoke coming out of it. I don't see evidence of fire. There's smoke, so Luffy cooked him. Okay. If push came to shove, would Luffy just eat it raw? You can eat fish raw, right? That's what sushi is. Anime Dimension, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 20 months. Nami and Jinbei together will be a great combination, as Nami can make it rain with Weather Egg plus Zeus, and Jinbei can use that rain to use water attack. Oh, that's a good point. So even if they didn't have water, they could do something, as long as Nami doesn't get killed right away. All right, let me finish up these Warcury notes. How strong is Warcury? I don't fucking know. It's like... So far, technically speaking, Luffy in a 3v1 had to run away from him. Like, this is factually what happened, right? Luffy's not running from Jupiter or Mars or anything like that. Warcury's the only one that he's like, well, fuck, I gotta run. Next chapter, Akash Fan says there's smoke, no evidence of fire. That's, I meant more so like cartoon logic, like, is this just like, it doesn't apply. It's not even cartoon logic. There's nothing that I would say here. It's obvious Luffy cooked fire, cooked him with fire, cooked him over a fire. It's just, I view Luffy as so dumb that I kind of don't expect him to be able to make fire, but he clearly did, right? Jolly D. Joseph says Luffy has to kill Sanji first before killing any of the women. That's true. And part of this is going to be debating how easy that would hypothetically be for Luffy. Chopper's barely a snack for Luffy. Not if he's in Monster Point. And I imagine he'd be in Monster Point. Okay. So looking at all this, in my opinion, I feel like if the Gorosei essentially range from... Like right now, and I think next chapter could really change that. Because if next chapter Luffy is able to actually damage Warcury, most of Warcury's hype comes from the fact that right now a Yonko, like Luffy, in the form that could at least like deal damage and shit to Kaido, currently has no way of dealing with Valkyrie to the point that he has to run away, right? It's not even the same as the Seraphim, because the Seraphim, like, Luffy could slap around, but he couldn't deal damage. Maybe with Advanced Conqueror's Haki it's doable or something, and he just wasn't using it. We don't know. But at least from what we saw with the Seraphim, Luffy could slap him around, but deal no damage. Valkyrie, it's different, because it's like... Valkyrie, it's literally like... with Valkyrie, it's literally like... Luffy can't even do anything to... Like, he can't... It's not even damage him, right? Like, Luffy can't even fight him without getting hurt. So, he can't even knock him back. He can't do anything to him so far, right? So, that's very different. So, this isn't even... To me, that crosses the point from being like, okay, well, Luffy can kick his ass, but it's just a durability issue. It crosses the line from that over to, like, no, Luffy's just getting his, like... He can't do anything to him. He can't kick his ass. He can't do anything to him, period, right? If anything, like, Luffy literally just has to run away from this dude because he doesn't have a way to deal with him so far. Next chapter could change that, obviously, because next chapter it seems like, you know, Emmet's in the fray. Emmet can damage Valkyrie. We can maybe see more of what Luffy can do against Valkyrie once Luffy gets some inspiration. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 200. Oh, Mario Faith Warrior says, can he cook it with a Red Hawk punch? Yeah, because he could cook Chopper on the fly with the Red Hawk move and then eat it. But I don't think Luffy would be smart enough to do that. So I just don't think he would do that on the fly. I don't think he's got that sort of... He's obviously very smart as a fighter, but I don't know if in that way, you know? Like, I don't know if he realizes that he could use his food for cooking in a sense. Or his fruit abilities for cooking or something like that. So right now, my take on Valkyrie, I feel like if the Gorosei are arranged from like an Admiral to like the strongest Yonko or something like that, which is all in the same ballpark in my opinion anyway, I think Valkyrie is probably like, I think Valkyrie could be Kaido Big Mom-esque. Kaido Big Mom level, basically-esque. There's potential for more. There's potential for less, depending on if he gets his ass kicked next chapter. On paper, it could be more. Because, like, on paper, if you just read... Like, if you ignore Valkyrie, right? Let's ignore Valkyrie, and instead we're... I'll just press this shit. Like, new character introduced, right? New characters introduced. New character introduced, who is physically the toughest we've ever had. Gear 5th Luffy punches him. Like, blank slate new character introduced to us. Luffy, Gear 5th, is trying to punch him, literally hurts himself. He releases like island-sized Conqueror's Haki. Luffy in a 3v1 has to run away from him and can't fight him in Gear 5th. If all of that stuff was introduced with a new character, I think a lot of people would be saying this guy's stronger than Kaido and Big Mom. I think just because it's a Gorosei and we want to be very hesitant with how we scale them so far, I think people are going to temper their expectations a little bit and not jump to just saying they're stronger than Kaido and Big Mom. At the same time, we could be overestimating Valkyrie here, and next chapter we just see like how he can be defeated or beaten, or like what his weakness is and shit like that. Okay, so the time has come. We're gonna figure this shit out. So Luffy's in character. He's bloodlusted. It's good to know. He's not just gonna eat Chopper and Jinbei and shit. Okay, so. In general, in Luffy's favor, I think most Yonko can beat their crews. Example, Kaido versus Beast Pirates, Big Mom versus her crew. I think we straight up got that implied in Whole Cake, that like if Big Mom goes on a rampage, her crew can't stop her. However, Zoro, However, Luffy has less stamina than other Yonko, and Zoro/Sanji are significantly stronger than most Yonko 1 or Yonko 2 than we've seen. So basically, the way I'd put it is kind of like, if we were to just draw, right? If we were to draw, like, Kaido. Why am I drawing this when I could just type? So if we were to type, right? So let's say Kaido's like here, right? And then like king, queen, they're like down here, right? Like king and queen are super weak compared to Kaido, right? To the point that Kaido could just destroy them, right? However, I think most would say that Luffy, even right now, because of Gear 5's time limits and everything like that, Luffy is still below Kaido, right? I think most people would still say that Luffy versus Kaido, Luffy's not beating him in a time limit, and how you think Gear 5 Luffy versus Kaido goes, there's open to interpretation, even if Luffy's at full health, right? But I think most people would still put Kaido above Luffy, right? On the flip side, Zoro and Sanji, once they got their abilities, right? Like, once they got their power-ups, they fucking rolled King and Queen. Like, it was, like, once Sanji was using his shit, oh no, actually Sanji's getting kind of rolled. It's back and forth. But ultimately, you know, when Sanji gets his abilities, he basically beats King, or he beats Queen. I think most people would say, based on Sanji's health at the end of this wasn't like a high diff fight for Sanji, right? He passes out afterwards, but that's because of the eyebrow change and everything like that, right? But in terms of actual damage sustained, this was like solid mid-high diff or something like that. If we're counting only post his upgrade, because post his upgrade is what matters, right? Post his upgrade, it was like a mid diff. Same thing for Zoro versus King. Like, once Zoro gets his upgrade, the fight ends really fast, and King doesn't actually hit him again. The fight ends really fast. King is basically running away the entire time. He fucks King up pretty good. It's really fucking fast, right? So Zoro and Sanji should be here. Maybe you think Sanji and King are about the same level or something like that. I don't know, but whatever. Just put them in the same thing. But as you can see, like, if you're getting what I'm saying, like, just because other Yonko, their gaps are much bigger with their crews, well, Luffy is not portrayed to be quite as stable in terms of his strength as the other Yonko. And then Luffy's crewmates are basically tend to kick the ass of other crews' crewmates. You get what I'm saying? So the gap is different. It's not quite the same. Ryochia, thanks for the 2. Hey Morj, have you seen the Bleach Core 3 trailer? I saw that today. I did see that today. I am looking forward to it very, very much, especially Kyoraku's Bankai. That's my favorite Bankai in the series, and I'm happy that they kind of ended the string of like Bankai hype with his Bankai, at least in the trailer. Tom, thanks a lot. Or not thanks a lot, but I'm just, you know, responding to this. Are they strangers or do they know each other's weaknesses, fighting styles, attacks, etc.? They know each other's shit. Yeah, they have knowledge. Let's say they have knowledge. They have standard knowledge that they would have of each other. I think sometimes the Strahds don't have like full knowledge. You know what I mean? Like when Zoro first did Ashura against the Pacifista, the other crew members were confused, like what's Zoro doing? So let's just say standard level of knowledge that they would have of each other as crewmates. I think like a lot of the other Strahds didn't see Gear 5 till recently, right? So let me add that here too. They have canon knowledge of each other. I should move that down because my face might be blocking that. Okay. Akash Panda, thanks for the 2. Can't Luffy swing Emmet like a bat to beat Warcury? It depends if Emmet's okay with it, because Emmet's like a person, like a sentient being. So, you know, it'd be kind of rude, but it could make sense. Somebody last stream made this prediction that what if Luffy gets into Emmet like a suit of armor and fights like that, and that'd be cool. Orlando Gatuno, thanks a lot for the 5, and thanks for your first super ever. I appreciate that. You've missed my super, Morj. Wait, I don't think I did, because this is your first super ever. This says it's your first super ever. That's what the stream is telling me. So I don't know if I missed it or if it didn't go through previously, but this is saying this is your first time you've supered. I'm sorry if, I don't know if something technical happened, but BTW, it seemed like the Koi that climbed the waterfall story wasn't fully used since Momo instead became a dragon when he ate the devil fruit. Yeah, I forgot about that. So how is it? I guess it just, maybe it's more symbolic than anything. I don't know. Maybe it's more symbolic than anything. But I agree that ultimately it wasn't really... It was just... I think it's just maybe Oda trolling and saying it's a fish fruit for whatever reason. But I don't know. It's complicated. All right. Okay. So, um, Akash Panda says wearing him's more rude. Oh, Orlando Gatuna says it was the Yongo membership. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me scroll up a bit. Wearing him is more rude. Maybe wearing him could be like friendly. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm sorry, man. I missed it. Orlando Gatuno, thank you for being a. Well, it says you're a Pirate King member. You're a Pirate King member. Holy shit. Hola Morj. And for 5 months, do you think Kaido will come back? Maybe we'll see him and Big Mom and Yamato's cover story. Maybe Kaido's Devil Fruit will get an awakening like Luffy since they both pushed themselves to death. Kaido and Big Mom, it's very difficult because it's just like they're such impactful players that it's almost impossible to see them coming back in the story without swinging things dramatically, right? Because there's a difference with... So in the past, when One Piece villains have come back, like, you know, Crocodile's defeated, then Crocodile gets incorporated again. Caesar's defeated, and then Caesar's still in the story. You know, Lucci right now. These are characters who, in the grand scheme of things, are strong but not world-breaking strong, like world-changing, like they're not gonna be fucking up the balance of the entire planet. It's not like, oh no, Crocodile's back, like the whole world's balance is thrown into flux. If Kaido and Big Mom come back and they're still choosing to play on the same team, it's really, really fucking big. I've seen some people speculate like, well, what if they get them back and turn them into Seraphim or something like that, or farm their fruits or something. That stuff's interesting. Them coming back just as whole independent individuals as they were originally, that's very hard for me to wrap my head around. I don't know. We'll see. All right. In Luffy's defense, right? So for Luffy, one major thing that we just saw is... I have to ask you guys this. Do you think... Who is stronger right now? Do you think Zoro is stronger than Kizaru right now? Let me ask you guys this. Gerard Williams, thanks for the 2. Do an anime opening song / video tier list. I cannot, unfortunately, do that just because I tend to skip anime openings. I used to watch the One Piece anime openings, but I used to watch them back when I was really watching the anime like regularly. Since I stopped watching, which was like around Enies Lobby, I've not watched the One Piece anime openings, so I don't have a good grasp or memory on all of the openings. And in general, I started a habit where anytime I'm watching an anime, I tend to not watch the openings, period, because they tend to have a lot of spoilers. No. So most people say Zoro is weaker than Kizaru. Okay. Is Sanji as strong as, like, Saturn? Is Sanji as strong as Agorase? Is Sanji as strong as Saturn? Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Okay. So Zoro and Sanji are not as strong as Kizaru and Saturn, right? So I have a hard time reconciling that with like this, you know? Like, Luffy can handle Saturn and Kizaru at the same time, right? Without too much trouble. This is, as we said, pizza diff. There's no real reason Luffy can't do this to Zoro and Sanji, right? There's no real reason Luffy couldn't do this to them, as far as we know. So that's tricky. And I don't want to hear any of, like, Kizaru holding back or whatever, because it's like, no, like, it's the opposite. If anything, if you recall, the first time Luffy fought Kizaru, Luffy was holding back, because Luffy grabbed Kizaru and threw him away the first time and was laughing, and then this time he's grabbing Kizaru and squeezing, because he's actually trying. So... no, like it's if anything, it's more maybe Kizaru wasn't at full percent like capability because he's kind of split on the Vegapunk thing, but canonically, like, we have a 1-to-1 comparison that shows that in Luffy's entire first fight with Kizaru, Luffy was basically not trying at all, because he could have just ended him from the beginning when he grabbed him, right? As he does here. Okay, so I did personally feel like... Okay, so I gotta put that down. Luffy, low diffed, Kizaru, and Saturn simultaneously. And both these characters are individually likely stronger than Zoro and Sanji right now. How much stock? Then there's the team attack that happened on Luffy. There's the team attack that happened on Luffy just now with the Straw Hats. Yeah, there's that team attack that the Straw Hats did where they did Hell's Memories, Strong Right. Most of the Straw Hats don't have hockey. Most Straw Hats don't have hockey, meaning like Frankie, Robin, Chopper, Brook. Luffy can still get hurt by cutting attacks. Frankie, Robin, Chopper are useless against him. Nami's lightning doesn't work against him. Okay, it's starting to actually look very bad for the Straw Hats. It's actually starting to look very, very bad. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200. Natty NY says, are Kizaru and Saturn fine after the attack, though? Gear 5 seems to do less damage than it actually looks like. Saturn recovers. Saturn regenerates. No, like, that's the problem. How come nothing I do damages him? That's a Saturn thing. That Zoro and Sanji and Strides don't have recovery. Kizaru, he probably could keep going, but what's implied is like he doesn't want to because he feels bad, right? So that's its own thing. But at the same time, Kizaru is also lucky that he didn't get thrown into the sea and instead landed on a ship. Although Zoro and Sanji wouldn't have that problem, but you know what I'm saying. It's complicated. Yes, Fishman Karate still works. The slowest fighting style on the sea. Give me some arguments for the Straw Hats, because I'm mostly actually realizing I've only got a lot of arguments for Luffy. Luffy has less stamina. Okay, Straw Hats have amazing teamwork. Straw Hats have amazing teamwork, often more than the sum of their parts. Even a few mid-level Straw Hats have handled Big Mom multiple times, and Luffy should scale to that level. Luffy can arguably be Luffy should scale to that level, right? Tom, thanks for the 2. Frankie's tech does damage. Chopper's horns are sharp. Man, I know what you're saying, but Chopper's horns are not doing anything to Luffy. Horn point is not doing anything to Luffy. I don't think Luffy would even notice. Frankie's tech, it's a pacifista laser, which is effective. I'll change Frankie's a little bit. The Lowman. Thanks for the 2. Luffy could use water. Jinbei could use water, so other Straw Hats just have to get Luffy into position. I'll add Ashura Zoro. Ashura Zoro with 1% health. Bested Kaido and scarred him permanently. Other Straw Hats could pile on if Zoro manages to use Ashura against Luffy. Oh, Brandon King. Great point. Brook can hypnotize Luffy with music canonically. Tom says, Morj, if Luffy is already getting ganked by 3+ peoples, Chopper's horns and Monster Point can at least get a bit of damage in on him. Think of Scabbards versus Kaido. But the Scabbards all had Ryo, which was what was revealed to us. John Paul Palladino says, cheesing Big Mom does not equal beating Big Mom. I never said that they beat Big Mom, but I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't be like they... Like, how do I say this? Lots of times in One Piece, on paper, characters should just get, like, rolled completely, right? But then the way that it's actually written, like, if you had said, like, hey, Big Mom, not the starving Big Mom, like, okay, even before the starving Big Mom scene, pretty much universally it was agreed that, like, yeah, if Big Mom gets to the Straw Hats, she would just destroy them, right? But she got on board their ship, and then the way Oda wrote the scene, which was, I remember at the time it was controversial because a lot of people were like, wait, they shouldn't even have been able to do that to Big Mom. But at the time, like, Big Mom got on deck, and they were able to handle Big Mom, and it just happened, you know? Shit just happens. Then it happened again at Onigashima, and this time it's, like, full health Big Mom, and you would probably say, like, oh, well, like, Kaido can one-shot Luffy, right? So, therefore, if you drop Big Mom on, like the Straw Hats, then, like, she'll just one-shot any of them, too. But instead, the way the scene plays out is, like, no, they use their team attacks and stuff, and they can just roll her off the fucking island. Like, it's not to say they can beat Big Mom. I'm not saying, like, oh, just Jinbei, Frankie, Robin, Brook, like, they just beat Big Mom. But it's to say that, like, when characters' focuses and attentions are split, canonically shit happens where other characters can get their hits in, you know? I think Killer should have died 3 seconds into the Kaido and Big Mom fight realistically, but instead he was depicted to, you know, like, just for whatever reason, they managed to keep it competitive the entire way through, you know? So it's just like, I'll write this. Team fights in One Piece, for some reason, often are very generous to the group over the individual. I think it just happens that way for whatever reason. Kevin Magnus, thanks for your first super ever. Thank you for the 5. If Luffy low diffs an Admiral, I'll say Zoro and Sanji mid diff respectively. Even Zoro push back Fujitora and Dressrosa. Dude, I mean, I don't think I don't think that Zoro slightly pushing back Fujitora, who was barely trying in Dressrosa, suggests that Zoro can mid-diff an Admiral, you know? Because if, like, let's be frank, I think most people would say Zoro mid-diffed Lucci, right? So you can't have it both ways. You can't say Zoro mid-diff Lucci and Zoro mid-diffs an Admiral unless you think Lucci is equal to an Admiral, which I think nobody on this planet thinks, right? If you want to say Zoro... Oh, you want to say... No, you said respectively. I don't think either of them mid-diff an Admiral. Like, if I'm being very generous, then I'd say that... I would say that after Zoro and Sanji got their upgrades, they respectively mid-diffed King and Queen. I think Zoro, once he got his upgrade, mid-diffed King. I think Sanji, once he got his upgrade, mid-diffed Queen, right? Admirals are stronger than King and Queen. You know, I just don't think that that's where they're at. Um, Amartya Sinha, thanks for the 2. Logic, Luffy destroy, but my guess Oda writes Straw Hat W. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, on paper, lots of times these team fights just shouldn't even be feasible. Like, on paper. But, you know, if we've seen instances of the Straw Hats as a team being successful against Yonko a couple of times, you know, you've got a discussion. Jay Guap says Luffy goes gear 4th and blitzes the crew using Kong Gatling with Conqueror's Haki, instantly wipes out at least half the crew, probably more. That depends, because I feel like you could have the argument that Zoro or Sanji would get in the way and wouldn't let him just do that. And there's routes to victory, right? If Zoro and Sanji can stall him momentarily, maybe Jinbei could get some water. Maybe Brook could do some hypnosis or something like that. Some people are saying Zoro high diff or extreme diff Lucci, right? So that's open to interpretation. I err more on the side of like mid high diff, something like that. Not an extreme diff, because I don't think Zoro pulled out everything he can pull out. But it wasn't easy, right? So you can't say that and then be like Zoro can mid diff an Admiral. Gerard William, thanks for the 2. Weaklings held off Saturn. Yeah. Weakling group held off Saturn. Literally the weakest batch of the Straw Hats, right? I think if you were to do a quick Straw Hat ranking, it would be something like Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei. I've got Frankie here. I've got Robin here, then Brook, Chopper, Nami, Usopp, right? So he basically took... Oda said these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters can hold off Saturn, like these 5. And honestly, Robin wasn't even involved because Robin was kind of PTSD'd. So really, these 4 even held off Saturn. That's interesting. I don't know where Bonnie falls. Where do you guys think Bonnie falls right now? Real curious. I don't even know if we're including Bonnie in this. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Yeah, Robin wasn't even involved. Bonnie's, like, even without her transformations and stuff, Bonnie can turn Vice Admiral level characters into children. So she's at least in this ballpark. Like, she can casually take out a bunch of Vice Admirals and shit. And then 1v1, she's got a lot of abilities, which are still being understood. I mean, Bonnie would destroy Robin because Robin has, like, in a matchup, because Robin has no defense against Bonnie's abilities. But that's more of a matchup thing. Like, Robin was also getting fucked up by freaking Monet. And Robin can beat characters much stronger than Monet, like Hakuba and Toby Ropo and stuff like that, right? So that's a matchup thing. So Bonnie would destroy Robin because Bonnie could just turn Robin into a child, and Robin has no defense because she doesn't know hockey. Bonnie could do that to Frankie as well. She could destroy Frankie and Robin, but that, again, those are matchup things. In terms of against most characters, like who are competent, who is better, Bonnie, Frankie, or Robin? I don't know. I'm not going to put her above Jinbei or in that discussion just yet, but we don't know. Linskov, thanks for the 5. Stream idea. Rank best anime speeches. Dofi speech, Madara Pain, Hachiman speech, etc. You submitted this in the last Pirate King podcast as a stream idea. I don't know if that would be... I don't know if because I don't know Madara's speech. I don't know Pain's speech. It's very difficult for me to do a broad anime ranking when I don't know a lot of these. And 2, this gets very, very difficult because 1, we get into the discussion of what counts as a speech versus just like a private, like, does it have to be grand, spoken to a lot of people, or is it just any monologue? And then once we get to like, if it's any monologue and we're ranking any anime monologue, then you get down to some like really, really like, One Piece generally, monologues aren't even One Piece's thing. One Piece has phenomenal like bits of dialogue and thematic phrasing and everything like that, but it's usually much shorter and more. It doesn't really have elaborate things versus something like a Berserk where you got like a new monologue every 5 chapters or something like that. Like that's fairly deep and intensive. There's lots of series that thrive on that thing a lot more. So it gets very difficult. If you want to do best speeches in One Piece, that's one thing. But best speeches in anime in general, just the parameters, the number of series you would have to cover, what the rabbit hole could kind of lead down to. I'm gonna say no personally. But thank you for the suggestion. I do appreciate it because there's a lot of times people suggest stream ideas, and I do take them into consideration as to what people would want in the future. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick because we're almost there. Acebuck Comeback, thanks for the 5. With the current era ending, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer anime, what trends or things would you want to see in the next generation of shonen? So what's really, really interesting to me is that I think that there was even like a really nice graphic that I saw at one point that kind of broke down like the generations of shonen. And you could see kind of clearly like... shoot, I wish I could pull that up. It was a really, really, really nice graphic. Let me see if I can find that right now. Timeline of Shonen Jump. Let's see. It was a beautifully done little thing showing when things started, when things stopped. And one of the most interesting things that I noticed was basically like you could see the era that, like, so there's Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, etc. Then there's kind of like an era that lived in its shadow of series that kind of just weren't nearly as popular or whatever, and I wouldn't even call them next generation. They just kind of came a little bit afterwards and weren't nearly as popular. That would be like where Seven Deadly Sins and stuff like that falls into, right? So that's actually like the overshadowed era, if that makes sense, because the behemoths One Piece, Naruto, Bleach were already like ruling kind of, and then these things lived in shadow, and then you get to these series that are like a My Hero, Demon Slayer. I think Jujutsu Kaisen, I suppose, would still fall under this. And these are series that really, really, really draw heavily inspiration from One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, even Undead Unluck. Even Chainsaw Man, you see some, like, even though Chainsaw Man is off doing its own thing, if you look at Chainsaw Man and if you read Fire Punch a little bit and then you understand, like, okay, Chainsaw Man is this author's attempt to basically take some of the, like, basic Naruto, like, the traditional things that were dominating Shonen, like, work his style of writing into that template a little bit, but then still have it go off the rails and be its own thing very soon, right? But you can see this whole generation that's very Naruto, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach inspired, I'd say even more so than One Piece. And that's something that I talked about in a recent video. But what was I saying? Yeah, Naruto, Bleach, that inspired era, right? I think that's coming to a close. And I think finally with that coming to a close, this newer era gets to, and I know very little about it, but this newer era, it seems like, is going to get to live in its own style that's finally breaking off from the norms that were set by the behemoths of Shonen Jump before, if that makes sense. So, like, from my understanding, like the Sakamoto days or Dandadan, these are very, very different. These are not series that are rooted in like Naruto type setup or like Bleach type setup or anything like that. So I think we just had this era, right, where it was like, because you had the One Piece, Naruto, Bleach stuff, then you had series that kind of lived in their shadow, and so then you finally had this next generation that basically was like adapting the norms of the successful big three, like a Black Clover, like a Demon Slayer, like a My Hero, etc., adapting those norms because it was like, okay, well, this is the template that works, and so then those are exploding, and now finally I think the next generation is going to be kind of freed from the influences of the big three era, basically. I think it's going to be much more fresh. Again, Chainsaw Man, you can already tell, is like it started like pretending. It started off by pretending it's going to be kind of similar, and then took off and became its own wild thing. My understanding, series like Sakamoto Days, Dandadan, like the new shit, is attempting to be fairly different. I might be wrong because I haven't actually followed those series just yet. But like I think finally it's kind of like moving past the everything needs to draw its roots from them. Like we're like I think now we're finally hitting the post Big Three era age, because you could say the Big Three era has been gone for a long time, but the type of template that it created has stuck. And it's basically like a whole generation of mangaka were like, we need to model our shit off of this to be successful. And now we're finally moving on to, okay, now let's just move on to like actually new cutting edge shit, basically. All right. Let's move it along. Ace by Comebacks is Lost Gen for real. Yeah, there's like a lost generation of manga that like took place after Naruto, like that came about in the wake of One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and shit like that just went by the wayside, because you know, like some of them were successful, like I think like Assassination Classroom and stuff like that, but they weren't following the tropes that like they weren't like they just lived in the shadow of the Big Three. They really couldn't break out of that shadow, which is why the following generation clung so heavily to what the Big Three did, to break through and become successful. So, you know, it is what it is. Hussam Hashmi, thanks for the 2. Should I read Gantz? BTW, have you read Kagurabachi? I do want to read Kagurabachi, but I have not. I think Gantz is a lot of fun to read. It is still low-key one of my favorite manga ever, even though the ending was not satisfactory for myself and many other people, and endings matter a lot to me. But it is just such a fucking edge-of-your-seat, page-turner, like horror, suspense, mystery, all of that. It's a very, very gritty type of series. Sci-fi elements, very atmospheric. Just it really. Gantz was one of my favorites. It delivered in a lot of ways like Attack on Titan often did. Gantz was one of my favorite series in terms of like survival type stuff, where you could feel a situation just snowballing from bad to worse to worse to worse to just like abject terror for the characters and everyone involved. And it really did not hesitate to kill characters, make drastic decisions, things like that. I'm not going to say that makes it a well-written series, but it was certainly exciting for its time. No, it's certainly exciting in general. To date, I often wish that I could read another series like Gantz, just with maybe a bit better writing. Anyway, this arc is actually heat. Which arc? Kagurabachi? Okay. Most rods don't have hockey. Luffy is faster than pretty much than arguably all the Straw Hats. Luffy has future sight, though he often doesn't use it for some reason. Year 5 is just plain busted. Luffy has significant time limit in Gear 5. Arguably doesn't need Gear 5 to beat the Straw Hats. Okay. The way I'm looking at it is basically if you're Oda, you could write it either way. Also, let's get the likes up to 200. I feel like if you're Oda, you could go either route. Because what you could do, you could just... It's like how effectively do you want to portray each Straw Hat fighting? Because if you want to portray Luffy right off the bat using Future Sight, which sometimes he does, and it's frustrating because it's a sometimes thing, right? Like, has he been using Future Sight against Kizaru and Saturn and the Gorosei? Has he been using Future Sight? If he has, then wouldn't he have realized that his punch wouldn't work against Warcury or something like that? Like, I don't know if he's been using Future Sight. We don't know. However, against Ulti in page 1, he was fucking using Future Sight. He obviously was. He was using Future Sight. He just used Future Sight against Ulti in page 1 for some reason or another. We're not sure. So if Luffy uses Future Sight throughout the fight from the beginning, I think it's very, very difficult for the Straw Hats to beat him. Like, very difficult. Because a lot of the things that they could hypothetically do are next to impossible to get off if Luffy's, like, actively targeting them. You could say that, like, if Sanji's being very, very good about, like, intervening and protecting some of the weaker members of the crew, then there's a shot for the Straw Hats to... Because, like, here's the thing. I think that the Straw Hats cannot beat Luffy straight up, okay? I think Zoro and Sanji, as strong as they are, we've seen Luffy handle 2 Admiral-level opponents at the same time without breaking a sweat, right? If Zoro and Sanji are using everything in their ability, then I think that they could decently stall Luffy. I think the things that would have to come together for the Straw Hats to beat Luffy are Brook's hypnosis. I think that is fucking huge. I think Brook's hypnosis is huge. And then Jinbei hitting him with water. So I think what it would take for the Straw Hats to beat Luffy. I think what it would take for the Straw Hats to beat Luffy, if Luffy's, like, actually fighting well and not, like, jobbing for the plot or whatever, is I think it relies on Brook's music heavily. And the Brook music, whoever made this point is a genius, because this is probably, I think this is arguably the make or break point in this, because that's the one thing that the Straw Hats can all do, or that's the one thing that the Straw Hats can do that's just, like, exploiting a weakness of Luffy that Luffy can't really do anything about outside of just taking out Brook right away. And so if the game is, like, if the game is the Straw Hats, like, can they fend off Luffy for Brook to get his song off, I think that's doable. Because the song could, like, make Luffy drop his guard just long enough that Jinbei could get him with water. And then after that, it's kind of a wrap. Then the Straw Hats can just take him out. So I think because of this, there's a good shot. But it would require a lot of good teamwork. And it would require the Straw Hats recognizing their win condition right off the bat. So I can see a way to write Luffy losing, or Luffy beating the Straw Hats like that, right? There's only one Straw Hat that I think, like, if Luffy was using his abilities and, like, fighting straight up, like, could actually hold him off, or, like, actually go toe-to-toe temporarily, and I think that's Zoro using Ashura, just because Zoro using Ashura bested Kaido and scarred him when Zoro had, like, 1% of his health remaining, right? So based on that, I think, like, Zoro could take on Luffy momentarily head on just by himself. But even then, Luffy can fly. Luffy doesn't have to fight Zoro. He doesn't have to engage whatsoever. Luffy can fly. Luffy can do whatever he wants. He can turn, like, the entire surrounding environment rubber. So Zoro's not going to get to actually fight Luffy the way he would like to fight Luffy. Sanji is better equipped to deal with Luffy's shenanigans because Sanji's very fast, agile, can move around and such. But I don't think Sanji's got the firepower to actually, like, trade blows with Luffy. I just don't think he does. So that's kind of the Zoro and Sanji conundrum, which is that they're both the 2 next strongest characters, but the one that could maybe take Luffy head on for even a brief period of time, Zoro, like, arguably, he's got advanced Conqueror's Haki, he's got Ashura, like, he's the only one that could arguably maybe take Luffy head on, and that's if Luffy's not, we don't even know how Future Sight plays into that, but Zoro's the only one that could kind of do that head on, at least temporarily. But then the tricky thing is Luffy's got so many other options that he wouldn't have to take Zoro head on. He could pick off other Straw Hats as he pleased. And then the other Straw Hat, the only one that's, like, fast, mobile, and got good enough observation haki and stuff like that, like, who can actually deal with Luffy if Luffy's trying to pick off Straw Hats just like that, that's Sanji. But I don't think Sanji can actually take Luffy head on. I think Luffy's just too high in terms of firepower against Sanji. So it's tricky. But Sanji's very durable, so he could take a lot of punishment. Sanji's got the durability thing. So I think it's going to be reliant on... It's going to be very heavily reliant on Zoro and Sanji, while the other Straw Hats, like, provide cover. Like, maybe Frankie, like, just firing shit. Robin just trying to make things difficult. But I think it's going to come down to Brook. Zoro and Sanji are going to have to try and play keep away, or at least distract Luffy long enough for Brook to do like the music thing, and then Jinbei with water, and then I think, like, that works. Does anybody have a problem with this? Bitey McGar says Brainpoint solos no diff. Brainpoint would, but I think that Chopper hasn't showcased that in such a long time. Imagine says, how long is it going to take them to figure that out? The thing is that they should know that already, right? Because it's happened before. They should be aware, right? So 480, 490. When does Brook do this shit? I totally forgot about this. that Brook can do hypnosis. When does it start? This was a fun team fight, by the way. I forgot about this. It's a fun team fight. Also, this bit's funny. This is just like amidst all the other action, Hachi's got his own thing going on with these guys, like his own little backstory, and like they've got their own running gag of like them trying to beat Hachi, and Hachi being like too strong for them. Like it's like a story, like this mini story within the story, where in this mini story, like these are the big bad guys, Hachi's the hero, and he's just able to easily stomp them. But then in the broader scheme of things, like the Straw Hats are the heroes, saving Hachi's ass. I don't know, I thought that's funny. Anyway, let's see. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200. We're almost there. When does Brook do that shit? Okay, so he can do it. He can get the attack off pretty easily. It works on Luffy like a charm. Yeah. It works on Luffy like a charm. Brandon King says, can't Luffy just conjure earmuffs in Gear 5th? So, I guess this comes down to future sight. Because if Luffy sees the future and sees himself sleeping, then yeah, he should be able to conjure earmuffs. The attack goes off pretty fast, right? So, it's like, you listen to the song, you just fall asleep. I don't think Luffy's going to be smart enough to think of earmuffs if he's already falling asleep. So, it's going to come down to future sight. Here's my take overall, right? Tom says, Morj, you learn new songs over time skip. Yeah, that's good. That's good shit. John Paul Palladino says, Luffy's win condition is much easier to pull off than the crew's. That's true. I think, again, I'm just going to say it comes down to future sight. Because I'm having to come up with a lot of weight, like the hypothetical, the one route that the crew could win. Whereas what it comes down to. Whereas in theory, if Luffy takes out Brook early, they're done. I don't think Zoro and Sanji are going to be able to be enough to take out Luffy, personally. I want to believe in Zoro and Sanji, but it's just difficult to... Because, like, if you think that Kid and... Like, how do I say this? Like, I'm trying to be general, because I really think highly of Zoro and Sanji. If you think of, like, Kid and Law against Big Mom, like, let's pretend that Zoro and Sanji are the same as Kid and Law, right? Kid and Law couldn't beat Big Mom. They really couldn't. Like, they needed the TNT. And I think Luffy's more competent as a fighter at this point than Big Mom was. Like, Big Mom was fighting like an idiot, basically, that entire fight. Like, very just... Like, she was hardly using her moves, whatever. Like, Luffy's such a versatile fighter. Big Mom was never even shown to have future sight and everything. Even if we say, like, Zoro and Kid are stronger than Kid and Law, hypothetically, which I know a lot of people wouldn't agree with, but even if we pretended that, then it still feels like there's just a gap to the Yonko level. And again, like Luffy, I put as stronger than Big Mom at this point. Not in terms of stamina, obviously, but... just in terms of the things that he can do. So I think what it comes down to, if Luffy uses future sight off... Okay, hold on. Zoro slash Sanji need to take Luffy's attention off the bat, while others like Frankie, Robin, etc. provide cover. So Brook can get off his lullaby that will knock Luffy out. Even if it just makes Luffy sleepy, Jinbei can get him with water, and then it's over for Luffy. However, if Luffy can take Brook out before the lullaby, Luffy should be able to pick off the rest of the crew because most of their attacks are ineffective. And it would just come down to Luffy versus Zoro / Sanji. I think this is my take. This is my take. So I don't think the win condition is that difficult, because I think just getting off one lullaby, that's not that hard. I don't think that's insane. Can you guys see this, by the way? What can you guys see? Is this visible for you guys? The Joe says Sanji can use Future Sight 2. He can counter Luffy. I don't think so. Kurokami Najima says, wouldn't Luffy's Haki just negate what Brook does? No, because as far as I understand, this isn't a Devil Fruit ability. There's nothing. This isn't a Devil Fruit ability. This is music. This is the power of music. Haki has nothing to do with it. There's nothing about Brook's Devil Fruit that lets him do this. It's literally just he's a good musician. Tom says, Morj, is there prep time? Can they load Brook's songs into tone dials? We're going to assume that even if they could, it wouldn't work because, like, it's the original beauty of Brook's music, the live performance that's doing it. A tone dial couldn't emulate that. But at the same time, there's no prep time. Everyone is fresh, has their best equipment, so Brook has his violin, but he doesn't have... they don't have tone dials. Yeah, see, it's not a trick. It's music. It's just music. It's not a trick. It's got nothing to do with Devil Fruit. Is Luffy even capable of being bloodlusted in Gear 5th? Asks Eric Reed. I think so. I used to think no, which I was kind of worried about, because I love when Luffy gets very serious. But from what we can tell, to me, the Luffy that comes out here, I think there's a sharp difference between when Luffy gets angry in Gear 5th versus not. Like, when Luffy gets angry in Gear 5th, like, he's actually... Like, this is pretty sinister, in my opinion. Again, the cue for me is just the fact that he's actually, like, trying to hurt Kizaru now, whereas before he was going easy on him. Like, if we compare to, like... Oops. 1095, something like that. Oh, wait, around here? Yeah, maybe around here. Yeah, like the first time Luffy grabs Kizaru, it's just all fun and games, right? Like he's smiling, he's happy, he spins him around, throws him away, and he's like, yeah, look at him fly, right? So that's like casual Luffy in Gear 5th. To me, this is bloodlusted Luffy in Gear 5th. It's coming out, coming out much more sinister. He's actually squeezing Kizaru here, and he doesn't just let him go. He actually punishes him, pizzas him, sends him into the ocean. He's still having fun at the end of the day, but the attitude is obviously very different, and how aggressively he's fighting is very different, and how much damage he's trying to do. Kurokami Najima says, why didn't Brook use that ability on Black Maria or CP0? I feel like it's an ability. My guess would be that it's just an ability that's only effective on fodder, because it's not effective on normal people. Look, the only people that fall asleep are fucking fodder, Chopper, Luffy. It doesn't work on Nami. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a fodder and dumbass's ability, basically. It's like kind of the same way the Sogeking mask only worked on Luffy, Chopper. Maybe it'll work on some dumb fodder or something like that. But that's like one of Luffy's weaknesses. He's very easily influenced and susceptible to those type of attacks. Zane Blalock says, odds are Oda forgot that Brook can do that since he remembers techniques via readers. That's also true. It's also very possible. So, let me make this a little bit smaller. And let me make this a different color. If Luffy uses Future Sight off the that he could be prepared for Brook's music, and then it comes down to if Zoro / Sanji can react to protect Brook. Even with Future Sight, it's not a guarantee that Luffy's just going to be able to do whatever he can do for that Luffy's just going to be able to take Brook out right away because why? If we look back at the famous a certain moment involving a certain type of candy. Oh shit, I'm way off. Certain sweet candy, right? Fuck. How far back is this shit? Hold on. Where's the jelly bean? Oh, here we go. All right, here we go. Okay. Yeah. So based on this, Katakuri's trying to take out somebody. He's trying to take out Sanji, right? He has Future Sight. Sanji's still able to react. I view the jelly bean scene as funny just because it's like, how to explain? It's a good feat. It's a good feat. So at this point in time, if we take ourselves back in time, I have a bit of a cold. If we go back in time, Whole Cake Island had it was supposed to be Sanji's arc, right? I mean, it was Sanji's arc, but I think what a lot of Sanji fans believed in was that this was going to be an arc where like Sanji, very much, how do I say? This was going to be an arc where like Sanji was going to be like getting a lot of cool power-ups and doing shit like that, right? And getting a lot of fights or getting like a big fight because people had wanted a big fight for Sanji since the time skip. And so this part of the story started, and then Katakuri does this thing, and then Sanji dodges the jelly bean. And so like Sanji fans were really excited, and it was like, oh shit, like that's cool. And a lot of people were really excited. Some people even thought that Sanji might end up fighting Katakuri or something like that. So a lot of people were really excited by this moment, and it was supposed to be sort of one of those like, this is a sign of things to come, and the rest of the arc is going to be Sanji getting like some really big fight or like some really more cool moments and stuff like that. And then we got all the way to the end of the arc, and it was kind of like, okay, so the jelly bean moment was still the best moment out of all the moments that Sanji got this arc. And so then it became kind of funny because it was like the moment that was supposed to be, you know, like a cool little glimpse of like cooler shit to come. Like, oh, this was like a really small moment in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's not like it was a huge deal man out of it or anything. Like, there's a lot of shit going on in this tea party, but there's this cool little moment where Sanji dodges the jelly bean. Oh shit, what else does Sanji have cooked up for us in terms of combat feats this arc? And then it's like, that was it. That was the moment. You guys saw it. It was that. That was it. Now wait. What? 200 chapters and for Sanji to fight Queen, for him to get his next big shit. Kurakami Najima says that, or the oven speed feat. So the oven speed feat, I think, has unfortunately, like, how to explain this? Sometimes when cool stuff happens, like a character does a cool thing, then there's like a debate about how big of a deal that thing was. And then over time, the community kind of, like the readership kind of settles on like, this was a big deal or this wasn't that big of a deal. When the oven speed thing happened, I thought that was really cool. I think there were a lot of people arguing that it didn't really matter. I think as time has gone on and Oven has just become less of a relevant character, people don't really care about the oven speed thing as much. But Katakuri and the jelly bean thing, that remains relevant as Sanji's coolest thing. I think most people think that he did in Whole Cake, which is, it's just funny because it's objectively a cool moment, but it's just not like that it was supposed to be a moment that led to more moments, like a little teaser moment, but instead the teaser moment was just, it turns out that was the moment. That's basically it. It also doesn't help that it's a jelly bean, so it sounds funny to say in the first place, like Sanji dodged a jelly bean, that's so badass, but yeah. Anyway, this goes to show, I still think Katakuri's future sight is better than Luffy's future sight. It's my humble opinion. So I think it just goes, and Sanji's a lot faster now than he was back then. My humble opinion is just that, like, I think that if push really came to shove and Sanji needed to protect one person from future sight Luffy for one moment, I think Sanji could do it. So, overall, how do I say this? I think looking at everything, the more I thought about it, I think that Luffy does on... If Brook's music thing was not in the story, and Brook's music couldn't take out Luffy, so like, how do I explain this? I was kind of the opinion that in straight up combat, the Straw Hats could beat Luffy, if they were all together. The more we look through this stuff, I don't think, just based off of like the things Luffy's been doing lately, I don't think in straight up combat, I think even just like the moment Luffy took out Kizaru and Saturn, if you look at that, Luffy single-handedly had, like, fending off a lot of the Gorosei one after another. Not single-handedly, but, like, even the Mars moment, you know, it does feel like there's a gap between Luffy and his crew. I think in straight-up combat, it would be very, very difficult for the crew to beat Luffy, especially because the weaker ones can get picked off easier. And while I do think that Zoro could give him some trouble if Luffy's fighting him straight up and Zoro's using Ashura, and I do think that Zoro and Sanji together fighting Luffy straight up could be more trouble than people consider. Even Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei together. I think the problem is that Luffy is too fast and and his ability is too wide-ranging. That he would be able to pick off the other members of the crew and then get to take on Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei at his leisure, at which point I think Luffy would eventually win. It would be difficult, I think, but Luffy would still take it. So that's the tricky thing. And I think he could do it within the Gear 5th time limit. Or he could just not start with Gear 5th and do other shit instead, and then do Gear 5th. So it's like if Luffy were playing fair and just focusing in on Zoro and Sanji and Jinbei at first and letting everybody else get their shots in from the side, then yeah, the Straw Hats have a shot. But I think it's just too hard for them to stop. Like, I don't think Zoro's got a shot at stopping Luffy if Luffy's trying to get around and like take on other members, just because Luffy's so much faster. Luffy has future sight. Like, it should be very hard for Zoro to actually like catch up to Luffy to stop him from getting the crew members. Jinbei also too slow, right? And Luffy can turn the environment rubber. He can do so many things. Sanji's the only one that can like move around and like catch up to Luffy, most likely, out of the monster like strongest characters. I don't know if Sanji's strong enough to stop Luffy from like taking out the crew members if Luffy's really trying to take out the crew members. So that's the problem. Like, if Luffy's very smart and efficient with it, then he should take out the Straw Hats, I think. But on the other hand, if we look at the specific... So, like, in straight combat, I think Luffy would beat the Straw Hats. I think if they were all, like, trying to fight him together and he was playing fair and, like, not singling out the weakest ones and stuff, then the Straw Hats overwhelm him. But if he's, like, really spacing things out and, like, trying to just go after the weaker ones first, I think Luffy could take them all out. However, the Straw Hats do have this one ace in the hole that we were able to figure out, which is Brook's hypnosis. If they didn't... I didn't even remember that when trying to think of this topic. I forgot about that shit. I just figured that among the Straw Hats' many abilities, there would be some that give Luffy trouble. I forgot about the music. So, because we have this, there's kind of an ace in the hole that would allow the Straw Hats to beat Luffy. But that's kind of like, it's one cheap trick that they happen to have that should work. Yeah. If they were trying to take him on in actual combat and, like, not resort, like... I mean, where's the line between tricks and just your abilities? But you know what I mean. Like, if they were actually... Like... If you take the music gimmick out of it, then I think Luffy could probably take the Straw Hats, personally. JB says, can Usopp hit him with Sea Prism Stone? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Sea Prism Stone is part of Usopp's regular arsenal. Rafferty says talking about Luffy picking off the weaker Straw Hats first is so disconcerting. Yeah, it's sad shit to imagine, but it's what would happen. Billy McGar says, by that logic too, Luffy won't attack Sogeking because he's not part of the crew. Just imagine Sogeking, like, for the purposes of this, Sogeking is not involved, you know? He has to fight Usopp. All right, so with all that being said, do people agree? Considering Brook's ploy, do the Straw Hats beat Luffy? Yes? No? The Lowman says base Luffy greater than Zoro and Sanji. That's honestly very difficult to talk about because it's just like base Luffy, the way he was being written on the rooftop, does not feel like how Luffy's written now. Now it feels like Luffy just uses gear 5th for everything, so it feels almost like his base form is less effective. I'm surprised. So most people did not change their mind. Wait, why is that? Why would Brook's music not allow the Straw Hats to beat Luffy? What's the argument here? I think it's fairly cut and dry. Because Brook, I don't know, are people looking at this? Where's the thing? Where'd the thing go? Maybe people don't recall what I'm talking about here. The Brook's music immediately puts Luffy to sleep. So what are people? What's the debate here? How come this doesn't change anybody's mind? Because this is about the same that the poll was at the beginning. Not a Pro 64 says hockey greater than hacks. Brook's music wouldn't do shit. Brook's music is just music. How would hockey do anything to it? It's not a trick. It's music. Like literally, it's spelled out for us. This is just music. This is not hacks. There's no hacks involved here. It's just music. They could, but Luffy won't die. No, but read the whole thing. Read the whole thing. Even if they can just make Luffy sleepy, Jinbei can get him with water, then it's over for Luffy, because after that, they can do whatever they want, right? Once Luffy's got a bunch of seawater on him, they can just toss him into the ocean, they can do whatever. Luffy isn't seriously fighting anyone in that scene either. Are you daft? That doesn't mean that it won't work, because we already know. Like, listen, it's canonical. If you go back, right? Anything that's very, it doesn't matter how serious Luffy is. Tricks still work on him. That's like a huge part of his weakness. Tricks, hypnosis abilities. You can look at Miss Golden Week, right? So you look at Miss Golden Week. Where are we at? Like, in this fight, Luffy's very angry. Like, he's very angry in this fight. Like, this is bloodlusted Luffy, right? This is Luffy that is fighting, like, for context, this is Luffy fighting so that his crew doesn't die, right? So that his crew does not die. He's fighting for his crew's life, right? You could make the argument it is literally impossible for Luffy to be more motivated to save his crew, more motivated to win a fight than he is right now, because the crew literally dies if he doesn't win, right? The crew literally dies. This is you can't in good faith ask for a better setup of Luffy seriously attempting to win a fight, right? So Luffy's seriously attempting to win this fight, and he's like, I don't wanna. Why? Color's trap, right? I know I don't want to help you, blah blah blah. He's fallen into the color trap. Nothing, it's a simple painting. Right? Colors trap, blah, 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 blah. Hypnosis or some other tricks. First, it's hypnosis or some other... This is all canon, right? Hypnosis or other mind tricks are the most effective attacks that you can use on Luffy. Right? This shit is pretty simple. Don't really know what to say. Like, this is just canon. You can't like write out Luffy's weakness from him, right? It's just canon. So considering it's just canon, and like this is him trying to do everything in his willpower. Like, this is everything in his willpower he's trying to do to get up, but he can't. He's drinking tea, he's sitting here drinking tea. This tea is delicious. He's really upset about it, but there's nothing that he can do because that's just the way Luffy is. Luffy actually has to get hit with Flame Star for the paint to come off of him. Nothing has changed. This is canon, right? This has nothing to do with hockey or no hockey because this isn't like Devil Fruit related hacks. This is just basic hypnosis. Nothing Luffy has done in his Rayleigh training or anything like that has changed this fundamental aspect of his character. So if your argument is actually that the Brook music doesn't work, then you're not actually having a good faith argument because it's not based on anything, right? You can't just say, well, this just wouldn't work when it's like, no, canonically this would work. And canonically this is spelled out for us to be Luffy's weakness. If you want a headcanon that hockey can stop it, then it's just like, well, I can't stop you from headcanoning that. Like, it's not based on anything. It's pure headcanon. It's not based on or implied by anything. But for everything we've seen in the story, no, hockey wouldn't stop music. Hockey's not a counter to music. Hockey's not a counter to like painting or art, you know? Gerard Williams, thanks for the 5. You didn't read my last super. Luffy can use Conqueror's Haki while passed out. Honestly, the fight is 50-50. But Conqueror's Haki, just a passive use if it wouldn't knock out the Straw Hats. They're stronger than fodder. Let me see your last super. I'm sorry if I missed that. Oh, Luffy lets out a Conqueror's Burst while passed out. Sorry, I missed that. But still, I don't think that's going to do anything to the Straw Hats. They're not going to pass out from his Conqueror's Haki, you know? Oof says, you're saying that Luffy out of Little Garden is the exact same character now? Kind of disingenuous. No, I'm saying that No. I'm saying that the weakness that he had in Little Garden, which is that he is a simple-minded idiot, as Zoro says, is not something that has changed. Luffy is, to date, a very easily influenced, very simple-minded idiot, right? Like, that part of him hasn't changed. If Usopp pulled out a Sogeking mask right now, Luffy would think that is Sogeking, right? Do you think that aspect of his personality has changed? If you don't think that aspect of his personality has changed, then you acknowledge that the music would work just as well on him, right? This is 124. This is 493. This is like hundreds of chapters. Luffy's had so much growth, etc. Do you think that, like, unless you think the Rayleigh training was about, like, the only thing that's changed in the 2 years was just the Rayleigh training, which was him learning hockey and how to use his Devil Fruit better. Did it have anything to do with this shit? Did it have anything to do with trying to learn how to not get tricked by Sogeking masks or not enjoy music? Do you think that that's what he learned? How to not enjoy music? Ryochia says Django's hypnosis worked on Luffy. Yeah, this is a consistent part of his character. It just works on Luffy. Okay, first I want to check, do you think would Brook's lullaby work on Luffy? Okay, let's see this. Let's discuss this. Because I think we have to come to a consensus on this. Okay. The fact that there's still genuinely people typing, like, picking no is insane to me. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, this is in the story. This is literally in the story. There's not... What do you think happened? Do you think that Luffy no longer likes music? What changed? What changed here? What changed between pre-time skip to post-time skip? Zane Bladlock says, it'll work, but I think Luffy would still be instinctually dodging / fighting even while sleep lol. Yeah, that's possible, but do you think in that mode he'd be good enough to beat the rest of the Straw Hats? I don't know. Okay. If you pick no, you should be disqualified from future voting because there's just no point to it. It's basically like you just want to ignore canon and go with something that's based on nothing, okay? So if you pick no, do not vote on future polls. That's a gag, Morj. This fight is not a gag, right? We know the painting works here. So the painting works on him. Do you think there's a significant difference between Miss Golden Week's painting versus Brook's music? No, it's both just using art to influence other characters, right? In some sort of exaggerated way. But it works. If it works in a serious fight where Luffy's totally motivated, it should still work here, right? So Brook's music should canonically work. I would go so far as to argue I bet Brook's a better musician than Miss Golden Week is a painter. So I would that's my personal headcanon, but I don't think it's like off base, you know. The low man, thanks for the 2. Hockey can negate Brook's Devil Fruit. I agree, but it's not hockey. It's music. It's not a trick. It's music. Gerard Williams says it's a bloodlust Luffy. That's what changed. Yeah, but Luffy is like bloodlust Luffy is basically just like the character is heavily driven to win, right? Like they're bloodlusted, they're furious. This is Luffy in a state where he's fighting to save his crew. We can assume that it's basically the equivalent level of motivation that Luffy would have in this fight, right? We all know that when Luffy's fighting to save his crew or people that he cares about, that's when he's at his most driven. This is basically the best depiction you can get of Luffy being extremely driven to win a fight, and like he's pretty fucking angry, and it not mattering because hypnosis just works on him no matter what. There's not been a single time in the series that hypnosis has failed to work on Luffy or those type of tricks, right? So you would have to find a counterexample to prove that has changed, or you would have to find an example from the time skip training suggesting that Luffy has trained that aspect out of his weaknesses. Anyway, moving along. All right, so the Brook's music works on him, right? Considering Brook's music works on him, would the plan of them protecting Brook, they probably just have to protect Brook for like a few, how long would it take to get the lullaby off? Because it's a music thing, so you kind of need to get the song off. They would need to protect Brook for, I guess, the time it takes for him to play this music, right? So the real question comes down to, could the Straw Hats protect Brook for 15 seconds? Altogether, protect Brook for, let's say 15 seconds, right? No, let's say 10 seconds, right? Because he just needs to get off the lullaby part of it. Yes. No. Brandon King says, can Nami fool him with mirages? That's tricky because observation hockey exists. So in theory, with what we know of observation hockey, you shouldn't be fooled by like visual stuff. But at the same time, Garp got fooled by Shiryu's invisibility, so it's hard to say. Only one, thanks for the 5. Luffy learned from Apu and has future sight is what changed since pre-time skip. If he sees it here, he can block his ears. Oh, wait, this is a very good point. Hold on. We have our first good argument. First good argument against the Brook music situation. First good argument. So, one, actually, music works here again, right? So, I forgot about this, which is we're trying to find out if music still works on Luffy. Where would the Apu situation be, right? No, this is way too far back. Maybe here? Oh, fighting music. Perfect. Okay. And this is the type of music that seems... This is Devil Fruit based, right? So this is the type of music that should... what do you call? That should be counterable with hockey, I think, right? So canonically, we know that this type of stuff still works on Luffy. Like, music is still effective on Luffy, right? And this is Devil Fruit based. Brooks is raw, which means that his would actually work. This is actually super effective. Now, your argument is that Luffy has future sight, therefore he wouldn't get caught by that. But that's contradicted by the fact that Luffy didn't use future sight here, right? So in character, Luffy's not really using future sight against something like this. So this is actually very, very interesting to pick apart. You're saying that he could see... Or is he using future sight right now? Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Did I get punched? Zoro? So Luffy is surprised by all of these. It's not like he predicts this moment. If Luffy's having to hold, like, the problem with the holding his ears argument is that if Luffy's having to hold his hands with his ears, well, then he's gonna get his fucking head chopped off by Zoro or some shit, right? You can't you can't win a fight holding your hands over your ears. So I think it is a step. Like, I don't know how much more specific you would want, but this is probably the closest one-to-one we're gonna get of proof that music does still work on Luffy. And again, this is Devil Fruit based, so Luffy could theoretically counteract it with Haki, but in that case, like, Brooks isn't Devil Fruit based, so I think that it doesn't really matter, right? But that is a really good point, Oliwon, because this is like the closest way we can get a comparable example to what Brook does. And Brandon King, Konami Fool with Mirages, it's uncertain. Okay, so the Straughts altogether could protect Brook for 10 seconds. I think most people agree. Then in that case, I think that it's pretty much set, because if you agree that Brook's music works on Luffy, because it just obviously would, because it's kind of insane to argue that it wouldn't. It would just be based on nothing. If you agree that Brook's music would work on Luffy, and if you agree that the Straughts could protect Brook from Luffy for 10 seconds, I think that's pretty much a win for the Straw Hats, right? Because as soon as Luffy's asleep, Jinbei puts water in him. After that, Luffy's basically helpless, and then they can do whatever they want. They can toss him in the ocean. They can do whatever, right? Gerard Williams, thanks for the 2. Also, Luffy's heart funky beat overpowers. What? That overpowers? How would that overpower Brook's music? LeMan, thanks for the 5. Nice to see Morj doing some research for the Wano analysis. I guess that's what's happening, huh? Akash Panda says he literally says he knows another one's coming. Yeah, but that doesn't mean future sight, because Zoro says here comes another one, and then Luffy says I know. That does Zoro have future sight? This just means Apu's literally saying check it out. And so of course Zoro realized that there's another one. Like, this is not proof of future sight, because it's based off of what, like, he's having the same realization Zoro is. That doesn't mean that Luffy's seeing the future necessarily. It could mean Luffy seeing the future, but at the same time, they're both just, like, if you assume that if you pretend neither character has observation haki, these lines still perfectly make sense, because it's fucking obvious. They're realizing that they're getting hit with these attacks as music is being played by Apu. He's saying, check it out. Zoro's saying, here comes another one. Luffy's responding, I know. That doesn't mean Luffy's seeing the future right here. It could be. He could be, but we don't know. Either way, that's not the question. The question is, was Luffy using it at the beginning? And I don't think there's anything to suggest that Luffy's already using it at the beginning, right? Because once Brook uses it once, it's over for Luffy. Flip side, if Luffy sees Brook using it, he has to try and go after Brook, because if he tries to just cover his ears, then he's fucked. Because he can't fight the rest of the Straw Hats while he's covering his ears the entire time as Brook's playing music, right? Okay, let me give another question, you guys. Can Luffy beat the entire Straw Hat Pirates without using his hands? He can generate earplugs. That's a huge point, because that did actually come up earlier. Okay. So that means that the entire fight comes down to. That's a huge point, because that swings it hard back into Luffy's favor. That means what the entire fight comes down to is if Luffy uses Future Sight at the start of the fight. If he doesn't... Okay. Hold on. Okay. Prepare for music. And use earplugs. Because he doesn't have to protect Brook at that point. He could be prepared for Brook's music and create earplugs, and then beat the crew. I think that's it. I think the fight literally just comes down to if Luffy uses Future Sight from the start of the fight or not. Flame7245 says, I think Luffy would win while covering his ears. I personally don't. But I think that with earplugs, I think Luffy would win. Not a Pro 64, thanks for the 5. At best, his hypnosis was removed as it wasn't used on Big Mom at chapter 890. At worst, Oda didn't let it happen because Big Mom's Conqueror's Haki wouldn't negate it. I don't even know what this means. At best, what do you mean? At best, from whose perspective? Okay, at best, Brook's Conqueror's Haki was removed as it wasn't used on Big Mom at chapter 890. That could just be because it's such an easy ability for Oda to abuse, basically. It does work on simple-minded idiots, so I wouldn't be surprised if it worked on Big Mom. At worst, Oda didn't let it happen because Big Mom's Conqueror's Haki would have negated. What does Conqueror's Haki have to do with music? Conqueror's Haki doesn't have anything. You guys are like, Conqueror's Haki doesn't have anything to do with, what does that even mean? This is not some devil fruit ability. This is just music. Does Conqueror's Haki, can anyone tell me, does Conqueror's Haki affect music? I don't know if that's a thing. Is this some unwritten ability? Conqueror's Haki is, cancels out music? What does that mean? Akash Bandit, thanks for the 5. Luffy dodged Lucci while he was asleep, chapter 1069. He can dodge Jinbei's water attack after he sleeps, but he will still lose, I guess. Yeah, I'm not saying Luffy's useless once he's asleep, but I'm just saying that, like, do you think he's beating the entire Straw Hat crew asleep? I don't know about that. My take is basically it just comes down to if Luffy uses Future Sight at the beginning or not. If Luffy uses Future Sight off the bat, then he gets his earplugs out, and then he probably takes care of the crew. I don't think it'd be easy, but I think he does. If Luffy doesn't use Future Sight right off the bat, in character, I don't think Luffy uses Future Sight right off the bat in most fights. Because again, he was surprised by Apu's situation. He did start using it against Ulti in page 1, but he didn't use it right away from what I remember. Against Kai, it's just unclear usually whether he's using Future Sight right off the bat. Maybe he is. It depends. If Luffy's using Future Sight right off the bat, he should beat the crew, I think. So final verdict, if Luffy, and I think he does use Future Sight. I don't fucking know. Gerard Williams, thanks for the 2. I'm saying Luffy's heartbeat hypes him up too much. I mean, I don't know, man. Yeah, maybe. That's stuff that we basically can't debate on. Luffy's heartbeat hypes him up too much. I could still see Luffy enjoying music in Gear 5th. Like, I'm just saying. You see Luffy right now? If you played Brook's music right now for him, I could see him just dozing off. I could definitely see that happening. But I guess we're now entering the realm of hard speculation. I do see the argument about, like, why Gear 5th... Like, if you just want to argue straight up, Brook's music doesn't work on him anymore, I think that's a bad faith argument, because that's just, like, it's just not based on anything. It's just you already wanting Luffy to win the fight, right? Whereas it's just, like, everything else in the story suggests that there's no reason that Brook's music wouldn't work. Now, if you want to bring up, like, hey, well, would Brook's music work if Luffy's own music is already rolling and he's being caught up in that music, in that mood? I think that's a different discussion, because that is actually based on something. So in that case, maybe Brook's music wouldn't work with the heartbeat. I think that's a toss-up that's hard to call. That's one that's basically your own interpretation, right? John Paul Palladino, thanks for the 5. Luffy can also probably shove his ears in his head if we don't give him the earplugs. So Luffy should win 8 out of 10 times. I think what we can agree on, and I think what I was probably underrating before, is that Luffy, because of his fruit, has so many ways to deal with, music, if he's prepared for it, that he should be fine, right? Whether it's earplugs, whether it's shoving his ears into his head, whatever the fuck it might be. I think as long as Luffy's doing that, he's going to be okay, right? As long as he's prepared for the music, he's not going to lose to the music. Aldi Wong, thanks for the 5. He may not need Future Sight. He knows Brook's abilities. He could go into the fight with earplugs. That is a really good point. He could just use earplugs right off the bat. I don't know if he'd think to do that, because, like, we, the reader, I don't think any of us were thinking about Brook's music literally till somebody brought it up on stream, and to me that really changed things, because up till then it was looking kind of rough for the Straw Hats. So we don't know if he would think to do that right off the bat, but maybe. Akash Panda, thanks for the 2. He can wake back up. Brook's lullaby is short-lived. Yeah, but I don't think he gets the luxury of doing that. If what's stopping Zoro from just, like, coming at him with Ashura in that period of time, or Jinbei splashing him with water, you know? Chino Alabachi says, can't Luffy use his awakening to make more arms, Morj? He can literally make more arms from rubber in the ground. Maybe, yeah. That's a interesting point. It would be similar to... Oh, you're saying, like from the ground? I don't know. He probably could. Caleb Cool Guy says he would likely wake up before they could take him out. I think the Strahts are a lot faster than you give them credit for. The Joe says, let's be real, Luffy doesn't use Future Sight in the beginning of his fight, so in character he doesn't use it in this fight too. Yeah, but then the other argument that was just brought up is just like, does it, is Luffy could just use earplugs right off the bat because he does know Brook's ability. It's funny that it came down to Brook. I think everybody kind of agrees that Luffy, I'm on the same page as most people, which is I think everyone kind of agrees that in a straight fight, Luffy just beats the Straw Hats, right? There's just too many advantages for him, and he can just pick off the weaker ones too well, right? In most team fights where the Straw Hats do well, like against Oars or the Pacifista, it's usually written in a way where the weaker Straw Hats kind of get to be out of the fray, and then like a Zoro or Sanji will be mainly in the fray, or like, you know, against the Pacifista, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji were like mainly in the fray, taking the brunt, whereas the other Straw Hats could kind of get in whenever it was needed. But if we're writing Luffy as like fighting intelligently, then he would just take out the weaker Straw Hats efficiently, and they like Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei. Sanji's the only one like I've said this already, but Sanji's the only one speed-wise that could keep up with Luffy, to try and like prevent him from taking out the weaker crew. But then I think Sanji would just fold eventually, right? And then weaker crew gets taken out, and then I think Jinbei, Zoro, yeah, they kind of fucked. You could make I think the only argument you kind of got is like Gear 5th stamina, but like even without Gear 5th, Luffy's such a monster, you know? Flitch, thanks for the 2. More music defense. Literally all of Film Red. Film Red is not canon, so I don't count any of that. It's not written by Oda. Akash Panda says, Morj, I can't keep donating, but he dodged Lucci while asleep. He can dodge any Straw Hats while asleep and wake up right after. I think that there's a difference between like dodging just Lucci. Wait. Are you talking about... For some reason, I thought you were talking about the Ennis lobby fight, but I don't remember that exactly. Are you talking about here? When does he dodge Lucci while asleep here? Oh, wait, I remember. Like, after the fight, right? Probably like 1076 or something? Whoops. Are you talking about, like, once Lucci was, like, tied up? Oh, no. Never mind. Can someone give me the chapter? Chapter 1070? Okay, so it was during the fight. Okay, let's get to Lucci. My bad. Is it before this? Fell asleep during the barrage. Chapter 1069? Okay. Okay, hold on. I think I'm missing something. So, the fight's going. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. That is actually very interesting. No, I think that's it. I didn't even realize he fell asleep right here. I think that's it. I think that they can't beat him even if he falls asleep. Akash Panda, I think you're correct. Yeah, no, I see you. I think you're just correct because, like, if even while he's asleep, he can dodge Lucci's attacks. I don't think the straw. I would agree that I don't think that. I thought that there was some exaggeration here or something, but no, this is definitely a sleep panel. I don't think that there's a way that the Straw Hats could get him if in like this close quarters with Lucci, he's still able to do this. I think that swings it for me. I think that swings it. I think even with sleep, it's not going to happen. Sanji and Chopper give Luffy laced food, says Gerard Williams. Oh, that's awesome. That opens up its own avenue of things. But I think I got to cross this off. I don't think it works anymore. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to cross this off because I think it just I think Luffy takes it. I think Luffy takes it because ultimately it's just gonna be like a lot of like yeah, Brook could throw in the music, Jinbei can try and do things with water, and the Strats will basically just have to give it their best, like pull out all the cards and shit like that. The giving Luffy food thing, by the way, I think when Bloodlusted, I've never seen Luffy like stop for a meal when like. Not stop or like take food from his enemy in the midst of a fight. Sorry, let me clarify. I don't think I've ever I might be misremembering something, but I don't think I can ever remember Luffy taking food from his enemy mid-fight personally. Music, painting, hypnosis, that's all stuff that is proven to be factually very effective on him. So that's why I'm using that. But I'm not going to say that like Luffy will just take food from Sanji if Sanji gives it to him. I think that's it. Is there anything else that can swing it? Because I think otherwise, I just don't see. I think if even like with tricks like that, like making Luffy fall asleep, he's able to react, then one, he's gonna get the earplugs out at a certain point, right? And two, it's just like who's even gonna land a hit on him? Spirit of Adventures is Morj. I think that's more of a gag that Lucci was so slow that Luffy was bored. Yeah, but I think also part of the gag is like I don't think Luffy was faking being asleep. I think that like Luffy was legitimately falling asleep right there. I'm seeing if there's any more arguments. The Joe says, but is he really asleep and not just mocking Lucci Morj? Because it's Gear 5th, and Gear 5th, like, actually turns a lot of jokes into, like, it turns, like, a lot of the gags are, like, real gags that are happening, right? So I do think that, like, the joke that Luffy can sleep while fighting Lucci, I think that's a joke that's actually, like, manifesting, if that makes sense. I don't know if that... Put it this way, we've never seen Luffy, even when he's having fun in other fights and stuff like that, like pretend to fall asleep and actually get the sleep bubble. I think the sleep bubble is reserved for when a character is actually asleep, right? I think the sleep bubble is reserved for when a character is actually asleep. I think that if part of the gag is like, I just think that I think Luffy's legitimately falling asleep in Gear 5th. I think that actually happened. I don't know. Gear 5th is the epitome of mocking, but I don't think I don't think Luffy's faking the sleep bubble, you know? I just think that the sleep bubble, it's just something that Oda does when he's actually having the character fall asleep, personally. Gerard Williams, thanks for the 2. He ate Katakuri and Crackers food. Yeah, but that was to win. Like, that was because he had to try and win. It wasn't just like, oh, you're giving me food, thanks for the meal, you know? Like, he had to eat his way out of the mochi to survive, right? Against Cracker, he had to eat the biscuits to survive. This is more like, oh, well, what if Sanji just gives him food and it's poison? Luffy's never done that. If there's like a necessity, like if you want to say, hey, Luffy's running out of stamina, so they leave out some food or something like that as a trap, and then Luffy has to eat it, like Luffy sees the food, is like, what if I eat that to regain stamina? And they set it up like a trap, that could make sense. TCB says, since Egghead is ending soonish, will you make an Egghead analysis video without having a Wano analysis video out? If Egghead ended like next week, then I'd have a Egghead analysis video out that week, because the Egghead analysis is like close to done, if that makes sense, because I've just been adding to it and like working on it as it goes, and just new things that come up in the arc, they sometimes change what the Egghead analysis is shaping up to be. But for the most part, the themes and the ideas of the arc have already been very they've all been fairly set up from fairly early on in the story, and every new event and occurrence in the arc just adds to those ideas. So the thematic writing of this arc is very, very cohesive and coherent. So writing this analysis has actually been pretty easy, because everything just tends to slot into certain categories, and what he's doing with certain characters just falls into certain categories. So the Egghead analysis is close to done. Hazard and Gibson says, bruh, he literally made Saturn and Kizaru pancakes. Anything done Gear 5th while funny is actually real, lol. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I do think that Luffy's legitimately asleep in that moment, right? It's a joke. It's funny. It's silly, but it's a joke. It also is happening. All right, so the big shouts to Akash Panda, because I think that was the thing that swung my opinion over to Luffy just wins. So that was like the final piece of... Because before that, we had like a long sort of back and forth of like, okay, is this true? Yes. Is that, like, we went all the way back to like Little Garden to try and look up past examples. The Apu moment was important, but at the end of the day, if it comes down to, well, Luffy's still very effective even while asleep in Gear 5th, I think that that's kind of the thing that basically like closes this. TCB says ignored the Wano analysis. No, I didn't ignore it. I'm just saying that, like, what was your full thing? Your full thing was, you said... without having... No, I would put out the Egghead analysis before the Wano analysis if Egghead ended, like, next week. Just because the Egghead analysis would be, like, pretty much done. I would put out the Egghead analysis, yeah, before the Wano analysis, if Egghead ended right away. Most likely, Egghead's not ending, like, next week. So I think most likely the Wano analysis will be out before the Egghead analysis. They might be back-to-back, honestly. Gerard Williams, thanks for the 2. Does Luffy win low, mid, or high diff? I still think with the amount of bullshit the Straw Hats can throw at him, because, like... he is going to have to deal with dodging, like, a bunch of seawater being thrown by, like, one of maybe the strongest fishermen out there, I think, arguably. Is Jinbei the strongest fisherman in the world? Is Jinbei the strongest fisherman in the world? I don't know. But he's going to have to deal with, like, a lot, right? Like, Zoro and Sanji going all out, they're still going to be challenging for it. Like, you can't just... we already saw Kaido go at Zoro when Zoro's in Ashura mode, and that didn't end well for Kaido, right? And this is going to be Zoro with a lot more health, better mastery of Conqueror's Haki, etc., right? Not saying Zoro beats Luffy, obviously, but I'm just like, it's not going to be easy, right? Luffy's going to have to figure out a way to beat Zoro without taking too much damage. Sanji's going to be like a severe problem for Luffy just picking off Straw Hats, right? But Luffy, ultimately, if he gets to focus, he would be able to take out Sanji, but he's just going to be bombarded from all sides by a lot of characters, right? Like, Frankie's got lasers. Robin's ability literally allows her to try and constrict Luffy, but it's not going to be that useful because he's got the perfect ability to kind of wriggle out and not get hurt by any of that or trapped by any of that. Like, she literally can't damage him. She could be, like, vaguely problematic, covering up his eyes and stuff if we really want to get into it. Brook's got the lullaby and stuff that'll be playing in the background, making him go to sleep on and off or whatever. Seawater. Usopp, we've seen before, when he can really think about it and knows his opponent, he can be very effective in, like, trying to think of things that are a problem. Nami's got Mirage stuff. But honestly, at the end of the day, even if you stack it all up, I still think, like, while Luffy will have a lot of pain in the ass bullshit to deal with, I think that, like, I do think that ultimately Luffy does take out the whole crew. I think the only thing that could potentially be the reason that he might lose would be based on how the usage of gears and Gear 5th is played. Because Gear 5th has such a severe... Historically, Luffy's... one of the biggest things about Luffy is that he's this tank, right? He's like this Iron Man in that he can go for fights for such a ridiculously long period of time, right? Like, in Eni's lobby, all the other Straw Hats wrap their fight and wrap the entire conflict of the arc, saving Robin and everything like that, while Luffy is still fighting his fight against Lucci, right? Whole Cake Island, Luffy fights for, 12 hours or some shit like that, right? Onigashima, Luffy's fighting from start to finish while the rest of the Straw Hats are doing all this other stuff, right? Luffy's always been this Iron Man in terms of the length of his fights, but with Gear 5th, suddenly it's like he's made of glass. Or not made of glass, that's not the right way to say it. Like, suddenly it's just like he's just got no cardio, basically, right? He runs out right away. However, flip side, you could just say that, well, he doesn't need Gear 5th for taking out the Straw Hat crew. I think it's a mixed bag because it's like, I think the versatility of Gear 5th would be very, very helpful against the Straw Hat crew and just allow him to counter a lot of things, like maybe turning the ocean into rubber, right, to make it difficult for Jinbei to use his stuff, or like earplugs or shit like against Brook, right, like to invalidate Brook's stuff. So it's kind of just Gear 5th, the versatility it provides would be very helpful against the Straw Hat crew, but you could also make the argument that he doesn't necessarily have to use it to beat them, and that becomes its own ball game. So I think the only thing that might be his undoing in the fight is if the Gear 5th time limit is just too tight for him or something. I don't know. And so Gerard Williams, to answer your question, does Luffy win low, mid, or high diff? All of that's to say, which is what prompted this long rant. All of that's to say, I think it's a high diff battle for Luffy still against the crew, just because they know him, they know his abilities, they can really abuse a lot of that, and they've just got so much bullshit that is a bit of a problem for him, like seawater or the lullaby shit, or like ways to exploit him a little bit. But I still think ultimately he takes it. I think it's a high diff. Not a Pro 64, thanks for the 2. Is the LBAF analysis before the Wano analysis? That's funny, but the Wano analysis will come first. All right, let me give you guys a poll. Final verdict. Akash Panda, thanks a lot. Driven Luffy can push himself back into Gear 5th without food. Yeah, that is a very good point. You're 100% right on that. We saw that in at Onigashima. He can just push himself back into Gear 5th. But I guess basically the question is just, and I'm on board now. I think Luffy wins. The question is more so just like, how long would it ultimately take Luffy in Gear 5th to beat all the Straw Hats? I think he still does it. I don't think it's easy. I guess I'll maintain that. All right, final verdict. Shoot, is the poll loading? For some reason, the poll's not loading on my end. What the hell? Come on. Oh, did the poll not post for you guys? Here, let me do it again. I'm sorry. Final verdict. Okay, we posted that time. All right, Akash Panda ultimately was able to sway me. Okay, so the majority still feel that Luffy wins. I think it's swayed more now that we really talked through it. And now that we've realized that the Brook lullaby shit doesn't work either. The sleeping thing was honestly, when I saw the sleeping panel, did I get rid of it? But when I saw the sleeping panel, I was kind of just like, oh, it was almost a reminder moment. It was just like, wait, Luffy really, really is like on another level right now. Because we just saw Zoro versus Lucci. And, you know, I'm sure Zoro could have ended that fight earlier. That's true. But Luffy's just on another planet at this point. Like, when he's in Gear 5th, he can really fucking coast against all of these guys. Genuinely falling asleep mid-fight. Yeah, Luffy would, like, the sleeping panel did click in my head. I was just like, this motherfucker's just actually falling asleep. And it's not even like, there's one thing like falling asleep mid-fight or something like that if it's like there's a lull. or something like that. But this was like mid Shigan barrage from Lucci, close up. Lucci being known for being a very fast fighter, right? Like mid Shigan barrage, Luffy's actually just falling asleep in that moment, and he's falling asleep doing something difficult. He's not even dodging, he's like having fun moving his head around to dodge. And it's so easy for him that he's actually just doing it in his sleep. Anyway, final verdict. So most people think Luffy wins high diff. Some people, there's 8% who think Luffy wins low diff. I could even see a mid diff. I don't agree with it, but I think it's high diff personally. I think don't underestimate Luffy's crew at the end of the day. But yeah, the argument for the Straw Hat winning, I think it got crushed at the end of what do you call? It got crushed at the end of the Lucci panel. Basically, I think that the moment we got that, chapter 1069 is what it was. I think at the end of that, it just got crushed. Also, for the record, anytime we do any sort of these sort of debates or whatever, even though I may have like strong opinions on the way things are, I will always change my mind as soon as I'm presented with like clear evidence that something is or is not the case. That has historically always been the case. So the only reason I was arguing so hard for the Brook thing, I wasn't even that hardcore on the Straw Hats winning until this Brook thing happened, and then I was like, oh wait, because of this Brook thing, it is very difficult to argue that Luffy can beat the Straw Hats. Because I was like, if he falls asleep, how could he win? And so then that's why I disliked a lot of the arguments, which were just like, no, the lullaby wouldn't work on Luffy. Because those aren't based on anything. You have to show me something. You can't just be like, no, he just wouldn't fall asleep. No, that's not how this works. Especially when, as I go through the series, you can find more and more examples of that sort of stuff being his weakness that has not been worked on, right? So that's the type of arguments I dislike, if you just say something without any sort of basis, right? Because for me, I'm just looking at the source material. So I'm just like, this is what we see. Give me something that counters this. If you can't find something that counters this, then the Straw Hats have a good shot at winning, right? So when you just counter with your headcanon of things that never really happened, like, Luffy got over his hypnosis weakness. When? Show me. When did that happen? Did not happen, right? But if you show me, hey, Luffy can actually, one, we know he can conjure things, so he can come up with earplugs, right? So that's big. And two, if you show me that Luffy, at this point in Gear 5th, can actually fight high-level opponents without a problem, literally half asleep or asleep, that's like a hard counter to this. So that's how I'm always going to prefer, like, power scaling debates. It has to be based on, like you need to show me panels before, like, because I went hard on the Straw Hats train after I was shown this panel, because logically I didn't see a counter to it. And now I'm hard on the Luffy wins train because I see, like, I'm shown a panel that's a hard counter to it. So that's how I'm just always going to view these sort of things. I feel like this was a cool rabbit hole because we kind of went through the whole gamut of, like, okay, here's what Luffy can do, but here's what all the Straw Hats can do. Okay, and here's like an ace in the hole the Straw Hats could have. Okay, here's counter arguments to that. Here's examples of it in the modern day. Okay, here's Luffy's counter to that ace in the hole. I think we kind of wrap things up pretty neatly with that. I don't think there's any arguments against Luffy at this point, unless the Straw Hats start showing something new in the rest of Egghead Island. But I doubt it'd be anything insane enough that would really change the opinions here, right? Unless Sanji shows a new form, like it's like Hell's Memories wasn't even my thing, or Zoro starts using Ashura more frequently or something like that. You know, we got to see. All right, everybody. Not a Pro 64 says, I think based on just the logic of Conqueror's Haki and Haki in general, it's pretty definitive that hypnosis would not work. That's the thing, because that's not... that's like the definition of just not being based on anything. That doesn't make any remote sense whatsoever. It's legitimately not based on anything. What does Haki have to do with music? How is Haki related to music or like paintings? It's established that these things are not tricks. It's just music, right? Like, it's not as though it's not like Nami's not affected by the music because she's got her Haki so strong, right? This is just, it's music. She's fooled by that. Or like Luffy's fooled by that because he's affected by music. Haki would not affect how deeply Luffy's affected. Like, there's nothing written about Haki that implies that it has any relationship to changing how a character would be affected by music. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even like Luffy doesn't have Conqueror's Haki at this point. This is the arc that he first starts using Conqueror's Haki, this like here. Like, this is the moment that he starts using Conqueror's Haki. Luffy is a Conqueror's Haki user at this point in the story. Like, literally, this is what happens. This is Luffy using Conqueror's Haki. It's not, the music is not relevant to that. He's already got the Conqueror's Haki juice inside of him. You either are moved by the music or you're not moved by the music. It's not like, that's the thing. Like, those are headcanon arguments, you know? Those are headcanon arguments. But if you show me, like, Luffy dodging in his sleep, that's like a source material argument. That's based on something. It says this is not a weakness for him that would affect him anymore. Anyway. All right, everybody. This was a good stream. I think I liked the way that we were able to figure this shit out. I think pretty canonically we can say that Luffy probably beats... Not canonically. You know what I mean. There's no actual way to know how Oda would write it. If Oda were to write it, I think he would write... Just the way that he writes things, I think he would write it more generously for the Straw Hats, because he tends to write... You know, like, he just tends to make it fun. He makes it more fair for the group, you know, for whatever reason. I still think Kaido could have, like, taken out Killer pretty quickly on the rooftop, or Big Mom could have, but they just didn't... Oda just didn't write it that way. He made the fight more back and forth, right? But... If you're to look at it on paper, what we've seen so far, I think it's very hard to argue that Luffy doesn't beat that shit out of his crew at this point in time. If they get more power-ups or better showings by the end of Egghead, then we'll wait and see. But at this moment in time, I think Luffy takes it. All right, everybody. We're going to call it here. Thanks for tuning in. This was a fun stream. And yeah, we got our chapter back this week, so I will talk to you all later. I think if Oda were to write it, he would have Luffy lose. He might. I mean, he didn't have the Straw Hats beat Oars, and that was kind of the closest we'll ever get to them beating Luffy. But he did make a point of just, like, making it very clear that, you know, like, don't underestimate the Straw Hats at the end of the day, right? Like, where was that panel that... This was one of my favorite panels. It was like, it seemed like Oars had just beaten the shit out of Luffy, out of the crew. And then the chapter ends with them being like, you shouldn't be underestimating your own crew's strength. And it's all the Straw Hats lined up. This is one of my favorite moments in the story. So, like, then they have a really good showing against him, but they ultimately lose. And, like, you know, it's just the way it is. But obviously, fighting Oars is not the same as actually fighting Luffy. But, like, I think Oda would have the crew do well. I still think Oda loves Luffy so much that he would still have Luffy take it, but I don't think he would embarrass the crew. All right, guys, that's it for this stream. And yeah, I will talk to you all later.